Welcome, friend. Yes, you. I'm so glad you pressed play. Take a breath with me and settle right where you are. Let your shoulders drop a little. Unclench your jaw. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However you arrived, curious, tired, wired, or wonderfully calm, you're home now. This little corner of the internet is a night porch for curious minds and gentle hearts, and you're invited to sit and stay a while. Let's make this a real conversation. Tell me your name and where you're listening or watching from. A city and country is perfect. A balcony, a bus seat, a kitchen floor with a late cup of tea works too. If you want extra credit, add your time zone and the current time. It's fun to watch the comments become a constellation. Lisbon at dusk, Nairobi at midnight, Jakarta before sunrise, Vancouver with rain on the window. Keep them coming. I read them, and they help me imagine you exactly where you are. What are you hoping to feel by the end of this session? More relaxed, a little smarter, ready to drift off. Write one word in the comments that names your intention. Calm, curious, cozy, focused. There are no wrong answers. When you see someone else with the same word, give them a warm reply. Two people on opposite sides of the planet choosing the same intention at the same hour is its own kind of astronomy. Here's how this space works. We blend wonder with ease. True stories from the universe told with kindness. Simple explanations that respect your intelligence. And a rhythm gentle enough to sleep to if that's what your body needs. Think of it like a night walk with a friend who always brings a flashlight and never rushes you. We pause to notice starlight. We follow questions wherever they glow, and we leave the hard edges at the door. A quick roll call for fun. If you can see stars tonight, type how many you notice in your first glance. 10, 50, a skyfall, or 0 if the city glow is strong. If you can't see the sky, tell us the color of the light in your room right now. Warm like candlelight, cool like moonlight, or laptop blue. This is how we learn each other's nights. You can choose your mode for this episode. If you want a sleep story, dim your screen, set your volume to a soft level, and let the words wash over you. If you want to learn, keep a notebook nearby or open your notes app and catch any sentence that makes your mind spark. If you're here to unwind without sleep, light a small candle or brew a cup of tea and let your breath set the pace. Whatever you choose, you can change modes at any time. Curiosity and rest are not enemies. They hold hands here. Tell me your first sky memory. A beach where the Milky Way looked like spilled sugar. A city roof where one bright planet felt like a friend. A rainy night at a bus stop when a break in the clouds showed a single star. Or maybe a blanket fort with glow-in-the-dark stickers when you were 7. Write it down. You think you'll remember, but sharing makes it real. And your memory might be the doorway for someone else's. Let's do a tiny check-in with the body. Is your breathing caught high in your chest? Place one hand on your belly, one on your chest, and let the belly lead the inhale. In for 4. Pause for a comfortable beat. Out for 6. Let your exhale be a little longer than your inhale. One more time, a touch slower. Your nervous system loves this. You're telling your whole body, we are safe enough to learn, or safe enough to sleep. Here's what you can expect across our nights together. We'll wander through star nurseries where light learns to become itself. We'll listen to fusion's first breath, meet the colors of heat, blue, white, amber, and read a rainbow to learn a star's ingredients. We'll visit our own Daystar and its gentle winds, sit with variable stars that pulse like heartbeats, and stroll through families of light in open and globular clusters. We'll travel to worlds found by shadow, trace the long middle of a star's life, and rest with quiet embers called white dwarfs. We'll step into the densest silence of neutron stars and the last brightness of supernovae. Then notice how the sky is a moving map where every star drifts a little. We'll talk about true night and how to invite it back. We'll also celebrate constellations and the cultures that name them. Because science and story are both ways humans say I'm paying attention. I want this to be interactive, not a monologue. So try this. Pick a word that describes your sky right now and add an emoji that matches. Clear, cloudy, dusty, tropical, frosty. A moon, a cloud, a spark. When you come back to future episodes, scroll and see how the weather of our community changes. House rules are simple and kind. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with each other. Ask questions freely. If you correct someone, do it with warmth, the way you would to a friend at your kitchen table. We can disagree and still be good company. And if you're shy, you can always just write, listening. That counts as joining. If you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss the next night walk. If something in this episode makes you breathe easier, press like. It tells the algorithm to carry this calm towards someone who needs it. If you have a friend who loves space or a friend who needs softer evenings, share this with them. It's lovely to imagine two friends in different cities pressing play at the same time and looking up together. Let's make a small ritual you can keep each time you visit. Choose one of these. Light a candle, set a glass of water beside you, open a window for 1 minute, or simply place your phone face down when you're ready to listen. Rituals tell your brain, this is our good time now. If you have your own ritual, favorite mug, warm blanket, the dog curled at your feet, tell us about it. I'll gather your ideas and add them into future intros. I'd love a quick 3-note comment from you. Location, current sky in 1 word, favorite night sound. It might look like this: Lima, hazy, distant traffic. Auckland, crisp waves. Ankara, velvet nightingales. Sometimes I read a string of these out loud before I record, just to remember the world as a living map. A playful poll for the comments. Are you team moonrise, team midnight, or team dawn? If you want to elaborate, tell me why. Moonrise feels like a curtain going up. Midnight is a cathedral with no walls. Dawn is a gift that arrives even when you aren't watching for it. I rotate, depending on the season, but I love reading your reasons. If you enjoy learning by doing, try our tiny field exercise after this episode. Step outside, look up for 30 seconds, and write down the first shape you notice. It can be anything: a triangle, a line, a kite, a saucepan, a crooked crown. That's your personal asterism. Give it a name that matters to you. Next time, see if you can find it again. You'll be surprised how quickly the sky becomes familiar when you claim one small piece of it. For the learners with notebooks open, here's a promise. We'll keep the science true and the language simple. No fire hose of jargon, no gatekeeping. If I say a new word, I'll anchor it to an image you can feel in your body. If I ever move too quickly, drop a comment that says slow the stars down a little. And I will. If you drift to sleep mid-sentence, that's not a failure, it's a compliment. Come back to the timestamp later and pick up where you left off. Support, if you're wondering, is wonderfully straightforward. Subscribe, like, share, comment. If a particular episode becomes your favorite wind down, save it in a playlist called Sleep Under the Stars or Gentle Science and revisit it whenever you need it. If you're listening on headphones, try lowering the volume 1 notch below your habit. The quieter you listen, the easier it is for your body to soften. Let's close this welcome with a tiny tour of the senses. Look around your space and find 3 dark shapes you hadn't noticed. Listen for 2 soft sounds you usually tune out. Feel 1 place in your body you can soften by 10%. That's it. You're more present now than you were a minute ago. Presence is the doorway to both learning and rest. Before we set off, a few lightning prompts you can answer in the comments now or after the episode. What's one question about the universe you've always wanted answered? What calms you instantly? What's your favorite night color? If you could rename one constellation, what would you call it and why? Your answers help me shape the next journeys. A little gratitude, because it matters. Thank you for arriving as you are. Thank you for making this a kind place on the internet. Thank you for making space in your day for wonder. I bring patience and honesty and a steady voice. You bring curiosity in your presence, half awake or fully glowing. Together, we make a small sanctuary that travels wherever you do. Now, one last breath to begin. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold a comfortable heartbeat. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Feel the weight of the chair or bed beneath you. Feel the room tilt toward comfort. If you're ready to drift, dim the screen and let the words become a tide. If you're ready to learn, keep your eyes soft and your mind open. Either way, you're in good company. Tell me, where are you joining from tonight? What does your sky look like? And what would you love to discover first? I'm listening. Let's look up together. Starlight begins. A quiet spark. You ease into the dark as if it were warm water, shoulder by shoulder, until the day loosens its grip and the room grows hushed. The edges of things soften. If it feels comfortable, place one palm on your belly and one on your chest and let the rhythm choose you rather than the other way around. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that easy pace nearby like a lighthouse you can see with your eyes closed. Tonight begins where light begins, quietly and honestly, without spectacle. You are not required to do anything except rest here and let simple facts become gentle company. Light does not arrive with trumpets. It appears when matter arranges itself just so, when a crowd of tiny particles shuffles close enough to share energy, when a system finds a small imbalance and lets it go as radiance. Deep inside a star, beneath the bright skin you would recognize in the sky, heat and pressure organize a conversation. Gravity leans inward. The hot interior presses outward. The compromise between them is brightness. The brightness is not a bonfire, not a show of sparks, but a stream of tiny packets of energy called photons. Think of each one as a soft note the star hums to stay in tune with itself. You don't have to memorize that word. Only hold the feeling that light is the result of balance kept over time. A photon is a single unit of light. It carries energy and moves as fast as anything can move. Its color tells you how much energy it holds. Higher energy leans blue, lower energy leans red. Inside the dense interior of a star, the crowd is thick and lively. Photons are created, absorbed, and created again. They try to travel, but the way out is long. They are passed along from particle to particle, changing direction again and again, like a careful message relayed by many hands. By the time light reaches the surface, the path may have taken thousands, even millions of years. There is patience written into brightness. The light you see is not in a hurry, yet it arrives. Most stars glow in a way that follows a simple rule. The hotter they are, the bluer the peak of their glow. The cooler they are, the redder it becomes. You don't need equations to feel this. Picture a piece of iron in a forge. First it shows a dull red, then orange, then white. Stars speak the same language of warmth, only on a scale large enough to cradle worlds. They are not perfect forges. Their surfaces move and breathe. Still, that simple guide remains kind and true. Color is a temperature postcard. Starlight is born inside, but the story is told near the surface. Above the bright layer that your eyes would consider the face of a star, there are thinner layers where atoms take small, careful bites out of the rainbow. Those missing slivers are clues. They tell you which elements live there, how dense those layers are, and whether the star is coming a little closer or moving a little away. People read these tiny signatures through prisms and mirrors, line by line, like the careful study of handwriting. No one can hold a star. What we can hold is the light, and light is enough. As you listen, let your own life mirror this quiet structure. You have a core where decisions are forged and a surface where they are shown. You do not have to force the surface to be bright. If the center is balancing itself, the glow arrives on its own schedule. Some evenings your inner photons need time. Some evenings the path outward is a gentle wander through memories and plans. This is not failure. It is the way warmth becomes soft. Under the surface, below the rolling layers that ferry heat upward, lies the nuclear heart. Here, small pieces join to become larger ones and give off energy in the process. In stars like our Sun, a sequence called the proton-proton chain guides this joining. In hotter, heavier stars, a different route uses carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen as helpers. The names are not important for tonight. The principle is, when the conditions are right, separate parts that would repel each other are brought gently close, and joining becomes possible. The energy released from that joining supports the star against collapse. Light begins as pressure managed wisely. You can treat this as a picture rather than a lesson. Imagine an inner room where different parts of you learn to sit near each other without noise. Gentle pressure, enough to keep shape, enough space, enough time, enough kindness for joining to happen without force. When cooperation becomes easier than pushing apart, warmth appears almost by itself. Sleep is easier when you arrange the room for it, the way a star arranges its core for steady light. Inside a star, the path to the surface is not straight. Imagine drawing a tiny line in a fresh direction with every step. That is the random walk. Each interaction turns the photon a little. The thicker the crowd, the shorter each step. But steps add up. The lesson is not speed but persistence. If your thoughts wander tonight, bumping into yesterday's worries or tomorrow's tasks, remember this. The mind can still move toward rest even when the route is slow and indirect. Give yourself a dim hallway and a generous clock. Starlight arrives not because it rushes, but because it continues. If you could look very closely at a calm star's surface, you would see a pattern like soft grains, each one bright in the middle and darker at the edges. These are signs of heat rising and cooler material sinking. Each cell lasts minutes before it fades into the next. The surface is not flat and still. It breathes. You have the same rhythm in your attention, bright patches of focus surrounded by soft margins of rest. Let them appear and fade without complaint. Not every minute must blaze. The soft edges are part of the design. Color carries quiet arithmetic. A star cooler than your sun wears a friendly amber light. A star as warm as the sun leans toward white with a hint of gold. Hotter stars look icy white or faintly blue. When those stars sit low on your horizon, the air itself scatters the shorter waves more strongly, so the colors can warm and soften. The names can be left aside. What matters here is the reminder that nature offers signals you can learn to read by slowing down. The sky is one such signal. Your own pace is another. Light spans a family much wider than the narrow rainbow our eyes can see. There are waves longer than houses and waves shorter than atoms. A star emits across a large part of this family. Your skin can feel the warmth of infrared. Your eyes find comfort in the visible band. The photons that finally reach you have crossed space cleanly once they leave the surface. Unless gravity bends their path, or matter scatters them again. When they arrive, they do not demand. They invite, look, and then rest. Beginnings are often mistaken for fireworks. We wait for grand declarations to start being ourselves. The next week, the next era, the improved version of our lives. But starlight does not begin with a noisy celebration. It begins in conditions. In the right balance between pull and push, you are allowed the same physics. You can begin with a sip of water, a slow breath, a small mercy extended to your thoughts. You do not have to be extraordinary to begin. You only have to make a little room. On the way out, light meets more rules. It scatters from free electrons. It gets nudged by atoms. In thin air, the shortest waves are scattered most, which is why the daytime sky looks blue and sunsets lean red. These are not distractions. They are the ways the world greets light and passes it on. When your day has scattered you, when messages and tasks have sent you sideways, you have not failed. You have simply taken the long, lawful route to evening. If you pass starlight through a prism and read the delicate missing lines, you discover what the star is made of. Hydrogen leaves one pattern, sodium leaves another, calcium leaves its own. The tiny shift of those lines toward blue or red tells you if the star is coming closer or moving away. Much can be learned by looking calmly at what seems to be missing. You can do that with yourself too. Gaps are not always losses. Sometimes they are signs that energy has been used to support the shape of your life. Starlight is honest. It travels as it can, is altered by what it meets, and still does its best to be itself. Let your voice be soft enough to keep truth intact. Say less if less is truer. Whisper if whispering is kinder. Not every brightness belongs to the eyes. Some brightness belongs to the body that calms when it hears you not trying too hard. Near the visible surface, the gas becomes thin enough that photons can move freely. Paths lengthen. Encounters grow rare. The way out opens. From there, the universe is a clean runway. From our sun to Earth, the crossing takes minutes. From nearby stars, it takes years. From the far ones, it takes much longer. But the long crossing only becomes possible because the earlier layers were patient. A quiet spark is not a small spark. It is a promise made early and kept late. You have surfaces too, the places where your inner decisions are shown to the world. Tonight, let your surface be simple. A dark room, a blanket with a touch of weight, a window open slightly for night air if that feels good. You do not have to announce anything. Set kind conditions and let what wants to leave the core leave at its own pace. Your kindness, your conclusions, your small smile at how complicated and brave it was to make it through the day. You can forget the pressure to measure your worth by how bright you look from far away. Some stars that seem dim are only distant. Some that seem dazzling are simply near. Apparent brightness is often geometry. Keep instead the practice of steady conditions. Keep a pace your breath can memorize. Let that rhythm be so kind that even your thoughts begin to sway to it. Keep T, the dark cloud. Cradles of light settle into the dark as if slipping into a lake at night. One breath at a time, until the surface stills and the shore grows quiet. Let your shoulders soften. Unclench your jaw. If it feels good, place one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that easy tide close. Tonight we enter the dark cloud, a cradle so gentle most of its work happens unseen. Here, stars are not yet stars, only possibilities folded into cold, patient matter. Picture a region wider than countries and colder than any winter you know. A dim congregation of gas and dust, so faint ordinary eyes would pass it by. This is a molecular cloud, a soft vault where hydrogen moves in pairs and tiny grains drift like quiet snow. It is not empty. It is dense with the ingredients of light, arranged to hide their future. Within it, some places grow slightly denser, as if the night were gathering its thoughts. Gravity notices such overweights and leans in. Where it leans, the cloud curves toward becoming. Cold helps. Slow particles are easier to gather than quick ones. Dust shades the interior from harsh glare and offers surfaces where wandering atoms meet. Some atoms join into simple molecules that shed heat as long, soft light, cooling the region further. Step by step, without drama, the cloud gives itself permission to clump. Gravity's tug competes with guardians of stillness, gas pressure resisting squeeze, magnetic threads steadying the flow, and gentle eddies inherited from old shocks and passing stars. When gathering winds in a pocket, that pocket grows denser and heavier. Nothing explodes, nothing shouts. The cradle simply tightens its arms. As the pocket shrinks, the crowding warms its center, not by flame, but by pressure. A protostar begins, a seed that does not yet shine by its own fire. Around it forms a turning disk, the natural outcome of matter falling inward while keeping its spin. In that disk, dust taps shoulders and sticks, pebbles, then stones, early hints of worlds. The center draws in material, building mass and heat. The cloud feeds its child without anyone seeing a thing. From the poles of a growing protostar, thin jets can burst, streams guided by magnetic fields. They rake bright lines through the cloud, carving delicate knots where they strike denser patches. Photographs look dramatic, but the feeling is simple. A newborn practicing balance, releasing what it cannot yet keep. Even that release serves the cradle, stirring gas, tracing the room where the new star will live. Within the cloud are darker pockets still, droplets of night within night, so thick with dust that outside starlight cannot pass. They look like charcoal beads against a faint glow, patient rooms for future stars. Some remain empty, their gatherings too modest. Others grow heavy enough that the inward pull can no longer be refused. Then the center takes a first full breath of becoming. We know these cradles by listening to light we cannot see. Cold gas whispers in long wavelengths that slip past dust. Warm dust murmurs in faint heat that special instruments hear. From those whispers we learn where pockets lie, how gas flows, and how attention turns into mass. You don't need the details tonight. Only the feeling that even in darkness, the universe speaks in patient signals. And quiet does not mean nothing is happening. Let your thoughts settle like fine snow in still air. If a worry appears, let it drift and find a surface. If a plan wanders in, let it settle too. The cloud does not chase its contents. Gravity and time do the sorting. You can do the same with your mind. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Let the room be a gentle magnetic field that aligns attention without force. The cradle's ingredients are ordinary: hydrogen and helium, with traces forged in older stars and scattered by ancient endings. Dust, born of those same funerals, drifts in this nursery like soft reminders that nothing is wasted. The cloud gathers what the past has given and shapes it into the future. The cycle is a spiral, not a circle. Each turn adds a little richness, a little more of what can cool and clump and dream. As the core warms, it glows in wavelengths too long for your eyes. Not the steady shine of a mature star, but the thermal breath of something coming to temperature. The surrounding dust absorbs and re-radiates that glow, smoothing edges and hiding corners. The cradle acts like a thick blanket, keeping light inside until the child is ready. Meanwhile, the disk thins and widens, pathways open for outflow. The young star learns to breathe in and out, taking material from the cloud, letting some go in narrow streams. Balance, again, is the signature. The cradle is a neighborhood, not a single room. Nearby pockets live their own timelines, some forming pairs that will dance for a lifetime, some growing massive and brief, others small and steady for billions of years. All begin in the same hush, the same careful dimness where cold permits closeness and dust permits shadow. Think of the cradle as solving several problems at once: dense enough to gather, cool enough to hold together, quiet enough that small pushes don't fracture, yet lively enough with motion that material can reach the center. Those conditions arrive by history, not magic. Ripples from old events, the brush of a passing star, the slow settling of time. Gradually, a pocket surrenders to its own weight, not in defeat, but fulfillment, and a center is born. Your body loves conditions. 2. A dim room, a comfortable temperature, a pace of breathing your nerves can trust. Sleep isn't forced. It's allowed. You remove obstacles and let your own weight draw you inward. The dark cloud shows how kindly this can happen. It doesn't announce itself. It simply makes space for a future to collect. As the protostar grows, its light and wind push back. The random inward rain slows. At some point, inward fall and outward push reach a truce. Not long after, deep at the core, heat and pressure cross a threshold where the smallest building blocks can join and release energy. A star has begun. Though from outside you might not know, the cradle still holds it, a parent sensing a first smile in the dark. Around it, the cloud thins. Some rains onto the disk, feeding the center like a broad, shallow river. Some is swept away by the newborn's wind, opening hollows that widen with time. Where the cloud remains thicker, gathering continues. A nursery doesn't close when one child is born. It hums for the next and the next. The region becomes a family of lights in training, each tracing its path from cool and quiet to warm and bright. In places like these, you rarely see sharp boundaries. Edges blur into edges, and that softness matters. It gives fragile structures room to persist, lets filaments feed the centers, and allows small differences to become gentle certainties. Let your night be like that. You don't need a crisp line between day and rest. Let the boundary be a gradient, wakefulness fading into drowsiness as a cloud's dim interior blends into its dimmer heart. Beginnings aren't lonely here. Gravity, pressure, magnetism, motion, dust, and time all meet, each offering what is needed. Even silence contributes. The lack of tearing light lets fragile molecules survive. The dimness protects more than it hides. Borrow that lesson. Your quiet can be protective, not empty. Dim moments are not failures of shine. They are rooms where future warmth is designed. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Feel how the bed receives you without asking for proof. Imagine a small, cold pocket within you where something good is gathering. You don't need to name it or hurry it. Give it the conditions it wants. A little darkness, a little stillness, a patient tilt towards center. When a cradle releases its child to the wider sky, it does so gradually. Curtains thin, cavities open. New light finds escape routes, first in narrow beams, then in a broader wash. The room that hid the star becomes the frame that shows it. Dust left behind will someday seed other worlds, other clouds, other stories. Nothing that sheltered the beginning is wasted. It returns as memory and path. On a countryside night, that familiar band of dim haze may be veiled nurseries. You cannot see the sleeping children, but they are there, working quietly toward a first breath of fire. In your own life, you may notice a similar haze and learn to trust it. Not everything clear is real, and not everything bright is powerful. Let the dark cloud be a blanket, not a wall. You are allowed to be unhurried and hidden while becoming yourself. Some parts of you are still drifting molecules, still dust learning to shade and join. That is not a flaw. It is the right pace for where you are. Offer your body kindness the way the cradle gives its children time. The night is generous. It stretches for many beginnings at once. Somewhere, as you breathe, a pocket of space is surrendering to its weight and turning that surrender into a future. Somewhere, a thread of dust is twining into a larger braid. Somewhere, a jet is carving a line toward balance. All of it happens without rush. And because of that, it succeeds. Let the room be dim and friendly. Let your breath be the slow wind that shapes the cloud. Let your thoughts move like dust, drifting until they find a place to rest. If sleep arrives, it will do what stars do, gather what you already are and turn it into what you need next. And if it takes longer, that is only the random walk of a photon through a kind, crowded nursery. You are on your way even when you cannot see the surface. You are held, you are becoming, and the cradle is enough. Gravity's gathering. From dusk to starlet, the night holds you the way a gentle slope holds rain. Without effort, without rush. Settle your shoulders, unclench your jaw. If it feels good, place one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide close. Tonight we follow a quiet pull that shapes worlds. Gravity gathering dust and gas until a star finds itself at the center of a story it never had to shout to begin. Imagine a wide, cold cloud where everything is unhurried. Gas moves softly. Dust floats like hush-thick snow. At first it seems featureless. Look more kindly and you'll notice small pockets a little denser than the rest, as if the night exhaled and forgot to lift a few folds. Gravity is sensitive to such small advantages. Where there is slightly more mass, its pull is slightly stronger. That stronger pull gathers a little more material, which strengthens the pull again. In this simple feedback, a pocket tips toward becoming, not by force, but by repetition. The cloud has found a place that wants to be a center. The calm is not empty. Inside the cloud, gentle currents swirl. Threads of magnetism stretch through the gas, and warmth keeps particles from crowding. For a pocket to truly gather, it must cool. Molecules and dust grains shed energy as long, soft light that slips away. Cooler gas moves more slowly and is easier for gravity to hold. The recipe is simple and humane. Slow things down, and they come together. As gathering continues, the pocket shrinks and its center grows heavier. This shrinking speeds the collapse by the easy rule that closer things feel stronger gravity. Material that starts slightly inward falls faster than material farther out, turning a quiet drift into a steady slide. Picture a bowl of dry grains as you lift one edge. At first nothing moves, then a few grains stir, and soon a continuous flow begins. Here, gravity is the bowl. Atoms and dust are the grains, and everything slides towards center. Nothing arrives perfectly straight. Even the smallest pocket carries a hint of spin, leftover twirl from the cloud's motions. As the pocket shrinks, that twirl has less space and speeds up. A skater drawing in her arms turns faster. A gathering core does the same. The spin becomes order. Material that can't fall straight inward settles into a thin, turning disk around the forming center. This isn't a detour. It's the natural path of falling things that keep their right to turn. The disk is a kindness, feeding the center without erasing its history. Inward rain continues along spirals inside the disk. Where material meets the newborn surface, it arrives with a soft shock that releases heat, a faint fire of becoming, glowing in wavelengths your eyes can't see. The center, now a protostar, rests inside a cocoon of gas and dust, fed by streams from the disk and breathing a delicate wind of its own, guided by magnetic lines that wind escapes most easily along the poles, where resistance is lowest. Thin jets lance into the surrounding cloud like silver needles through cloth, carving channels and lighting small knots where they touch denser patches. The newborn isn't being dramatic, it's equalizing, letting go of what it can't yet keep, shaping the room so more can arrive. Within the larger pocket, smaller clumps may also gather. Gravity is generous. Several centers can form if conditions allow. Some become companion stars, bound in a slow dance. Others are modest embryos that never ignite. Drifting bodies, seeds for future worlds. The region becomes a patient chorus, voices entering at different times, obeying the same conductor, the pull toward the middle. The inflow isn't just gas, dust matters. Tiny grains, forged in the final breaths of older stars, offer shade and meeting places. They block harsh light that would heat the pocket and scatter atoms that need to gather. They provide surfaces where molecules form and later where pebbles begin to stick. Nothing that protects the beginning is wasted. Dust is memory and tool at once, evidence of past light, scaffolding for future light. Every gathering needs a truce. As the core grows heavier, temperatures rise. Warmth pushes outward and fights collapse. When inward pull and outward push balance, the collapse slows. In this pause, the protostar finds its shape. It isn't yet shining from deep within by joining small nuclei into larger ones, but it glows softly, its surface alive with the commotion of accretion. The disk still feeds it. The jets keep clearing channels. The cocoon thins where outflows are strongest and remains dense where streams still find their way inward. You can feel these stages in your own body. Think of a direction you chose not suddenly but because many small tilts lined up. You cooled a little speed out of your day, and gathering became easier. You gave yourself shade from harsh attention, and your thoughts found each other without argument. You kept a little of your turning, honoring that you don't fall straight into anything, and that this isn't a flaw. It's how you keep your history while making room for your future. From dust to star is not a sprint. It's a choreography of patience. Gentle checks manage the gathering. Magnetic fields hold back some spin in the inner regions, transferring it outward and helping materials slide further in. This quiet braking keeps the disk from flinging everything away and lets the center grow. Turbulence, soft eddies and swirls can help and hinder, ferrying material inward through random lanes while puffing parts of the cloud against collapse. Even chemistry guides the flow. Certain molecules radiate heat more readily, allowing some parts to sink deeper than others. The process isn't neat because life isn't neat. It's effective because many small threads pull in one broad direction. As more matter settles, the central density climbs. Eventually, the interior warms enough that its own light pushes back on the dust around it. The cocoon grows more transparent along certain paths. The young star peeks out. The disk flattens and gains structure. Rings and gaps appear where forming clumps clear their orbits, early hints of worlds. The jets lengthen, beading faint glows in the cloud. The area around the system clears into a hollow, with curtains of thin smoke at its edges. If you could stand in that hollow and listen, you'd hear nothing. Silence is gravity's native sound in cold gas. But you could feel the structure, the way everything leans inward, the steadiness of a rule that doesn't change its mind. Things with mass attract, and under the right conditions they draw together, gifting their excess energy to space as soft light. That rule is old and unexcited. Its peace comes from not needing to insist. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Let your ribs widen and narrow like a gentle bellows. Notice the simple physics of your own balance. Weight supported, tension easing, a quiet agreement between the pull of the bed and the push of your breath. This is your version of the truce that slows collapse into shape. Rest isn't the end of motion. It's motion arranged, In time, the center crosses a threshold. Deep within, heat and pressure become enough for the smallest building blocks to hold each other. When that happens, the star supports itself with the energy of joining. Its light is no longer only the warmth of falling things. Now there is an inner fire, steady and modest, supplying an outward push. Balance between gravity and pressure becomes more complete. Accretion slows, jets soften and fade. The disk keeps turning, now a place where stones grow and worlds negotiate futures. The cradle that once hid the star becomes a frame that shows it. You don't need the names of the phases to feel how natural they are. First, a leaning towards center, then a cooling that allows gathering, then a quickening as closeness begets closeness, then a flattening into a circle of sharing, then a clearing of space and a soft inner light that doesn't boast. These steps aren't commandments. They're the comfortable path through a landscape shaped by one pull and many small resistances. Use them as a map for your evenings. Lean towards center, cool the day with water and slower breath. Let closeness bring more closeness. Pillow, blanket, darkness. Turn a little, honoring your habits without letting them fling you away. Clear space. Let a small inner light support you. On a dark night, if you notice a faint patch where the stars are fewer, you may be looking into such a place. A book written in invisible ink. We see its outline the way a silhouette shows shape by refusing light. Behind that silhouette, gravity is gathering. A disk is spinning. And in the deepest room, a future star is learning to hold itself gently. The timeline is long because the method is kind. The outcome is bright because the beginning stayed calm. Let your room be that kind of place, dim and generous. Give your thoughts dust to settle on and time to cool. If a worry skims the surface, let it drift outward along a polar escape. If a memory hovers, let it be shade instead of glare, a cover that makes closeness easier. Be a pocket that leans towards center by doing less, not more. The universe keeps teaching one lesson in many forms. Balance isn't the absence of motion. It's the agreement that keeps motion from becoming noise. Gravity gathers. Pressure replies. Dust shelters. Light finds its exits. What becomes a star isn't simply a pile of pieces, but a promise kept between forces that could have fought and instead decided to share. As you breathe, let that promise be yours. In for 4, out for 6. A long, kind conversation between the weight that holds you and the warmth that keeps you whole. Fire without flame. Fusion's first breath. Let the night welcome you the way embers welcome a kettle. Warmth that grows but never startles. Ease your shoulders down. Unclench your jaw. If it feels good, place one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide within reach. Tonight we step into the quiet heart of a newborn star, where fire is real but no flame is seen, where light begins not with a spark, but with a meeting made possible by patience and pressure. Imagine a room so deep in the forming star that nothing from outside can visit. The crowd here is immense. Every teaspoon would outweigh mountains. Heat is not an idea. It is collisions arriving without pause, particle brushing particle. The citizens are simple, protons, the positive hearts of hydrogen, moving so fast that rest is only a memory. Like charges repel, everything pushes everything away. And yet, impossibly, sometimes they meet closely enough to hold. That holding is the beginning of light. The obstacle is easy to state and hard to cross. Positive charges resist sharing space. Electricity lays down the rule, come closer and I push harder. The core offers 2 allowances. First, heat and compression raise the crowd's energy, so collisions are frequent and bold. Second, the universe offers a small gate in the wall, quantum tunneling. Even when energy seems short, there is a tiny chance a proton appears on the far side of the barrier, close enough for a different force to act. The strong nuclear force, a quiet grip, takes over at the smallest distances. Repulsion becomes union, and a trace of mass becomes energy. In stars like our Sun, this union follows the proton-proton chain. 3 gentle steps. First, 2 protons meet closely, one transforms, sending off a ghostly neutrino and a flicker of energy, leaving deuterium, a proton paired with a neutron. Second, deuterium picks up another proton, becoming helium-3. Third, two helium-3 partners meet and rearrange into one helium-4, releasing two spare protons to try again. Each step loses the tiniest mass. The missing mass appears as energy. The star reads this book constantly, small joinings that add up to steady brightness. Or think of it this way. In a packed room where hands are pushed apart, temperature and pressure bring you close enough to try. Quantum kindness lets a few pairs find each other despite the push. Once skin touches, a firm, invisible grip holds. A trace of what you were is released as warmth to the room. Each success is rare, but the crowd is vast and the moments unending. The room becomes bright. The soul of this brightness is balance. Gravity leans inward, asking the star to shrink. Fusion's heat and pressure lean outward. If fusion grows too strong, the core swells and cools. Reactions slow. If fusion weakens, gravity squeezes harder. Reactions quicken. A quiet thermostat prevents collapse and explosion. The star doesn't choose stability. The physics of its inner conversation makes stability the easiest path. Energy born in the core doesn't sprint to freedom. It begins as high-energy photons that ricochet endlessly, absorbed, re-emitted, scattered in a long random walk. A small fraction escapes more directly as neutrinos, messengers so shy they pass through matter like wind through fog. They whisper that fusion is happening now. The rest of the energy will take ages to reach the surface, drifting outward until radiation yields to convection. Heat carried by slow, rolling currents. What matters tonight is simple. The core has begun paying gravity's bill. The currency is light. Borrow that thermostat for your body. You don't need to clamp down to stay whole. A breath too quick can be answered by a slower one, a tight thought by a softer one. Inward pulls meet outward ease and yield balance. Palm to belly. In for 4, out for 6. Not to force calm, but to set the conditions for calm to appear. Quantum tunneling is the gentle miracle at the core. Classical thinking says, without enough energy to climb the wall, two protons never meet. Quantum thinking remembers that particles are also waves, positions smeared into possibility. A little of that possibility leaks into forbidden space. Over enough tries, some meet. You don't need the math to feel the mercy. The universe allows connection in places that seemed closed. Life has these allowances too. A conversation you were sure would fail turns toward understanding. A habit you thought fixed loosens a few degrees. The gate wasn't removed. It was discovered to be porous. In larger, hotter stars, fusion takes another path, the CNO cycle. Carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen act as carriers, receiving a proton, changing form, passing the baton until helium emerges and the carrier returns renewed. It is still hydrogen becoming helium, mass becoming energy, balance holding gravity at bay. The room is warmer, the steps differ, the outcome is the same. Steadiness. Hold the plainest picture. The star takes the simplest element and teaches it to share. The lesson is repeated trillions upon trillions of times each second. Each success so small it would be invisible if not for their number. From that accumulation of modest agreements comes the light that warms planets, draws out mornings, and writes shadows across the ground. Greatness here is not a single feat, but a long series of simple yeses. Notice the core's tenderness. If reactions spike, the star puffs and cools them. If they dwindle, the star narrows and warms them. No civil war, just the middle path, because the middle path lasts longest. You are allowed to last. Choose the pace that lets you continue. The thought temperature that keeps you kind. The pressure that keeps you engaged without breaking. The core is steady not because it tries to impress, but because it tries to be honest. In fusion's arithmetic, a bit of mass lost in each joining becomes a gift to the whole. Energy appears not from nowhere, but from a difference released. There's a lesson for a mind wanting sleep. You don't have to carry everything to be complete. Let go of an unfinished sentence, a forecast you cannot guide. The trace you release returns as warmth. You trade a sliver of weight for a wider room. Fusion's products shape the future. Helium accumulates like soft ash, changing how the interior conducts heat, how it will one day move into new seasons. Around the core, light elements fuel the star's long middle life. Beyond, around younger stars, dust enriched by ancient fusions waits to become rocks, oceans, and the quiet carbon of living things. No loud story, only time and faithful repetition. At dawn, the first warmth on your face is an echo of this work. Photons born long ago, finally stepping clear of the surface and crossing the short distance to your skin. They began where holding hands was almost impossible. They arrive as uncomplicated comfort. Many good things move like that. Nearly impossible at depth, straightforward at the surface. Let your breath trace that arc. In for 4, gathering. Out for 6, sharing. The out-breath lengthens a little, your version of light. Some nights, thoughts repel like charged particles, each idea pushing the rest away. Be the pressure and temperature that allow closeness. Be the quantum kindness that lets a few meet despite themselves. Be the strong, invisible grip that holds them long enough to become something new. A bit of restlessness turns into usable energy. The room of your mind brightens without flames. Fusion doesn't happen everywhere at once. It is most vigorous at the very center, where conditions are right. A little outward, the pace slows. That gradient keeps the star orderly. Let your night mirror it. Let the deepest part of you do the warm work. Breath, heartbeat, the muscle memory of relaxing, while the outer layers simply receive. Not every corner must be bright. It is enough that the center is kind. As the young star ages, fusion's first breath becomes a steady breathing, a rhythm that can last billions of years. The core changes slowly. The surface tells the story in color and calm, but the joining room remains a sanctuary of patience. The world's noise does not reach it. Distant opinions don't matter there. Only the conditions matter. Enough closeness to try, enough chance to succeed, enough grip to hold. That is what you create now by lying here, letting breath do ordinary kindness. If sleep arrives soon, let it arrive like helium from hydrogen, by steps too small to celebrate, resulting in warmth you feel without thinking how it was made. If sleep lingers, keep arranging the room, setting the thermostat, becoming a place where what must meet can meet without struggle. Breathe in for 4, hold a gentle beat. Breathe out for 6, hold a gentle beat. Return to the easy tide. The night is doing its part, gravity doing its part, the quiet physics of your nervous system doing its part. Somewhere, deep in a star, 2 small pieces touch against the odds, and light begins again for the first time. You don't need a flame to feel that fire. You need only a room made ready, which you have made by being here, breathing as you are, allowing what is simple and true to do its work. Colors of heat, blue, white, amber. Let the room dim to a gentle dusk and let your breath slow until it feels like a tide coming home. In for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, out for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we listen to the colors of heat, blue, white, amber, and what they quietly tell you about the lives of stars. Color is not makeup here. It is temperature made visible, a postcard from the surface of something far away, arriving without hurry and telling the truth softly. Hold a simple image. Every star glows with a smooth hill of light across many colors. And where that hill rises highest tells you how hot the surface is. Hotter stars raise their hills toward the blue. Cooler stars lean into red and amber. Middling stars rest near white. You don't need numbers to feel it. A metal rod warmed in a forge moves from dull red to orange to white as it heats. Stars speak the same language, only steadier and kinder. A very hot star looks icy blue to your eyes. A cooler one wears the color of coals. Between them lives a wide family of whites, creams, and pale golds. Blue light is a sign of intensity rather than mood. The hottest, most massive stars pour energy from taut surfaces, where gravity and pressure hold fierce truce. They live fast and bright, spending their fuel quickly. Their color is a promise and a deadline at once. Brilliance today, a shorter tomorrow. Amber stars, smaller and cooler, live long and steadily. Some will outlast entire eras, whispering their warm light for trillions of years. White stars in the middle, like our sun, carry a balanced torch, warm enough to wake planets, gentle enough to endure. Your eyes are partners in this reading. In daylight, when your pupils are small and your color-sensing cones are awake, subtle tints are easier to see. At night, especially under very dark skies, your more sensitive rod cells carry the load, and color drains toward gray. Faint stars then look similar, and the sky becomes a quiet charcoal field dotted with pearls. If you soften your gaze and look slightly to the side of a dim star, you may see it brighten. That is your eye using its strongest region. Even so, colors at the edge of sight blur, so what looks white may be a toned-down blue or pale gold. The universe is not changing. Your instrument has politely shifted modes to help you see. Earth's air adds its own brushstroke. The atmosphere is kind to long, warm wavelengths and quick to scatter short blue ones, which is why the daytime sky is blue and sunsets turn the sun ember red. Stars near the horizon soak through more air and can blush warmer than they truly are. High overhead, where the air is thinner, color is more honest. Interstellar dust can also redden distant light, tinting a star without changing its actual temperature, like a window with a faint tea stain. Astronomers learn to subtract these veils. For sleep, it's enough to know the sky adds a little poetry to the physics. Pause here and try a quiet exercise. Picture 3 stars strung across your mind's horizon. One blue, one white, one amber. Let the blue be a winter spark, crisp and precise. Let the white be a daylit sheet hanging in a breeze, simple and clean. Let the amber be a small lamp on a wooden table, steady and kind. Now breathe in for 4 and out for 6, and notice which one your body wants tonight. There is no right answer. There is only the color that settles you. Underneath these shades, the science is friendly. A star's surface behaves like a warm body that glows more strongly at certain colors depending on its temperature. The exact peak shifts bluer as heat rises and redder as it cools. That single rule explains a sky full of tints. Hot stars stack their energy towards shorter wavelengths, so the blue tones carry more weight in their light. Cool stars load their light toward longer wavelengths, so amber and red sigh through the dark. Medium temperatures spread their light broadly, and the mix lands near white. This is not a strict menu. Each star still sends a whole rainbow. Color is emphasis, not exclusion. Look more closely at the white of our sun. When you step outside at noon, sunlight feels white because it carries a healthy balance of colors. When it lowers in the sky and passes through more air, blue scatters away, and the warmth of orange and red steps forward. The sun has not changed its nature. The path simply colored it differently. That is worth remembering when you judge yourself by a passing mood. Your nature is still there. The path may be tinting you for a while. Color hints at lifespan. Blue stars, heavy with fuel and pressure, blaze through their supply quickly, sometimes in a few million years, then end in loud gifts to the galaxy. Amber dwarfs, light and careful, sip their fuel and may long outlive any story we can write. White stars in the middle choose a life of patience, measured in billions of years. If you think of the night as a gathering of personalities, this makes the blue stars the brilliant sprinters, the amber stars the slow, devoted walkers, and the white stars the comfortable distance runners. None is better. Each fills a place in the long conversation. Metal content adds flavor to color and life. Stars formed early, from a universe still young and simple, carry fewer heavy elements and can burn a little hotter and bluer at a given mass. Stars formed later inherit the ashes of old explosions, more carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, and their surfaces can look and behave differently. This is why 2 stars of similar size can wear slightly different whites or ambers. The sky remembers what came before. So do you. Your light is not just temperature, it is history. When you scan a winter constellation with a calm eye, you may notice a bright blue-white point paired across the frame with a soft orange one. Many patterns offer this contrast, a balanced chord writ large. The blue points give crisp edges to the cold air. The orange points warm the shape of the night. If you are ever out with a friend who carries a pair of binoculars, a handheld view makes those differences obvious and kind. It is like hearing harmony move from one instrument to two. Color can be measured more formally by comparing a star's brightness through two gentle filters, one that listens more to blue, one more to red. The difference is a color index. Bluer stars show a smaller or negative number, redder stars a larger one. You do not need the arithmetic. Hold the idea that there is a simple way to turn a feeling into a value and back again. Science and sensation shake hands in the dark. Let the reflective part be simple. A blue night is a night when you feel sharp and brief, when your thoughts move quickly and you prefer quiet distances. A white night is balanced and clear, when the day's edges smooth out, but remain faithful to their shape. An amber night is for the softening you earn after effort, the lamp turned low, the gratitude that arrives without speech. You don't need to choose forever. You can be a different color tomorrow and mean it just as much. Breathe in for 4, out for 6. Notice how, even without thinking, your body changes color in small ways with each breath. The skin warming where the blanket rests, a cool ribbon of air at the tip of your nose, the neutral quiet across your forehead. You are a spectrum too, with places of intensity and places of hush. When you let them coexist, the whole feels honest. If a thought insists on analysis, offer it a kind truth. The universe does not attach virtue to shade. A blue star is not better than an amber one. It is simply hotter, younger, heavier, and shorter lived. An amber star is not lesser. It is economical and durable. White sits between. The sky is beautiful because all three exist together, writing contrast into the canvas. Your life is beautiful for the same reason. You are allowed to glow differently at different times without accusing yourself of inconsistency. Somewhere right now, a blue star is carving frost blue light into a nebula. A white star is steady over a quiet planet, and an amber dwarf is humming along, invisible to most eyes, promising a future so long that the word later loses its urgency. All of them are true. All of them give. All of them will, in their seasons, share what they have become with the next generation of clouds and children. Color is the calm announcement of that generosity. Let the lesson fold inward. If you need precision tonight, imagine a small blue point above you and let your breath sharpen lightly to meet it. If you need balance, picture white and let your breath and heartbeat pair into even steps. If you crave comfort, hold an ember tone in the back of your mind and allow the muscles around your eyes and mouth to soften as if they had been lit by a low lamp. No formula, only a choice of temperature. Close with one more easy tide. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sky will keep its spectrum whether you watch or sleep. It has done so for a long time without asking for approval. Let your thoughts cool to the shade that suits them. Let your room take on its own quiet color. And if your final memory before sleep is only this, a wordless sense of blue, white, or amber, that is enough. You have learned what the stars were telling you. Temperature has a voice, and tonight it is singing you to rest. A star's wait, fate in the first mass. Let the room grow still until you can hear your own breath like a tide moving under a pier. Ease your shoulders down, unclench the jaw. If it feels good, place one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that shoreline rhythm close. Tonight we listen to a quiet rule that guides the entire life of a star. The weight it's born with sets almost everything that follows. Fate, written softly in the first mass. Imagine the nursery of space we visited before, a dark cloud folding in on itself until a center forms. In that gentle gathering, each newborn star inherits a starting weight. Some arrive small and careful, some average and balanced, some heavy with fuel and pressure. From that first number flow lifespan, color, brightness, weather, and the way the story will end. It is not punishment or reward. It is promise. A star lives the consequences of how much it can hold. begin with the smallest. Below a certain threshold, there isn't enough weight to squeeze the core hot and tight for steady fusion. These are the almost stars, shy embers called brown dwarfs, warm enough to glow softly, not quite lit by a lasting inner fire. A little heavier than that, and the flame holds. Small red stars take their time, sip their fuel, and glow a calm amber for longer than any calendar we own. They are dim to distant eyes, generous to the future, steady, frugal, enduring. Move upward in weight to a comfortable middle, the family of stars like our sun. Here the balance feels familiar. There is enough pressure inside to shine bright and kind, enough fuel to last for billions of years, enough quiet to nurture the possibility of worlds becoming patient places. These stars settle into long, orderly lives. Their middles thicken slowly as helium ash gathers. Their outer layers breathe with gentle currents, and their light writes long afternoons on the surfaces that circle them. Add more weight and the character changes. Heavy stars start hot and blue, their surfaces stretched tight by gravity and their cores driven hard by pressure. They blaze through their supply not because they waste it, but because their own weight demands a faster burn to hold the inward pull. Brightness rises steeply with mass. A little more weight means a lot more light. The price is time. What small stars do leisurely over trillions of years, the heavy ones do in millions. Their lives are brilliant sprints. All along this spectrum, the first mass whispers what is possible at the end. The smallest true stars will never swell into giant dramas. They will keep mixing their interiors, burning calmly until they grow quiet like banked coals, perhaps never reaching a red giant phase in the age of the universe so far. Middleweights will one day loosen their outer layers and bloom into red giants, their edges drifting outward like a warm breath on a cold window. They will lay down a delicate shell of gas and dust and leave behind a white, dense ember that cools patiently in the dark. The heaviest will finish with gifts of force, violent endings that seed space with new elements, leaving behind a core compressed into a neutron star's tidy density or collapsing further into a black hole. Where gravity keeps its own counsel, mass guides not only endings but weather. The low-mass stars wear deep convective coats, churning from inside out like a simmering pot, their magnetism lively, their flares sometimes sudden. The middleweights mix by layers, radiance in one region, rolling currents in another, a thoughtful division of labor. The massive stars glow so intensely that their own light becomes a wind, pushing on the outer atmosphere until it streams away. Over time, that light-sculpted wind shaves their weight, changing the path they take toward the end they're owed. Even fate can be rewritten a little by what a star sheds. Gravity and light make a pact inside every star. Gravity says, "Come closer." Light says, "I will push back." When the star is very massive, the outflowing light approaches a natural upper limit, a brightness beyond which the surface cannot easily hold. The star won't hold that line forever. Winds will carry some of it away. In this way, the first mass sets a target, and the star spends its life walking toward it, adjusting as it goes. Companionship adds another quiet twist. Two stars born close can trade matter. The heavier one may swell first and spill some of its envelope onto its partner. The lighter one can grow unexpectedly heavy, the heavier one unexpectedly trim. Their destinies lean toward each other, and the first mass becomes a shared story. Even so, the rule remains tender and true. How much a star can hold at any moment chooses what it can become next. Let this be more than astronomy. Think of how much weight a day can carry before it bends, and how gently you can plan to keep it from breaking. The star does not scold itself for needing balance. It listens to its own inward pull and arranges enough pressure to answer. You can do the same. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Your breath is the small pressure that meets the weight of the day without argument. Consider lifespan the way stars do. The heaviest lives are not the longest. They are the brightest, the most intense, the most demanding on their structures. Some seasons of your life will be like that. A push, a blaze, a necessary sprint. Others will be red dwarf seasons, slow and faithful, where small, consistent efforts outlast any loud beginning. There is no virtue in racing when the work asks for endurance. There is no failure in resting when the work asks for clarity. Mass hints at color too. More weight, more heat at the surface, and the shade leans blue-white. Less weight, less heat, and the shade leans to amber. But even a hot star is a full rainbow with a blue emphasis, and even a cool star sings a wide spectrum with a warm center. You are allowed to be like that, known for one tone, carrying many. Inside the star, the first mass sets the core's pressure. Higher pressure means fusion reactions run more quickly, and the star brightens to balance gravity. A helpful shorthand is that lifetime shrinks sharply as weight rises. Double the mass and the brightness may rise many times over. The fuel goes quickly. Halve the mass and the brightness drops a lot. The fuel lasts. You don't need the numbers. Hold the shape of the rule. What we can carry sets our pace, and pace chooses how long we can glow. There is kindness even in endings heavy stars must take. Their loud finales throw fresh elements into their neighborhoods. Calcium for bones, iron for blood, oxygen for breath, carbon for songs. Smaller stars return their softer gifts, floating shells of dust and gas that seed new clouds with gentle complexity. Fate in the first mass becomes fortune for what comes after. Your own endings can be like that. Things you release becoming material for someone else's beginning. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Notice the small weight of the blanket, a gravity you agree with. Notice how the outbreath eases pressure, the way light eases a star's inward pull. Pressure does not have to be removed, it has to be answered. Balance is the quiet arithmetic of enough. If you were to step outside on a clear night and scan across a winter pattern, you could find a bright blue-white spark that will live fast and finish in force, and somewhere nearby a modest ember that will keep its promise for ages. Between them will be stars like ours, faithful and measured. You are looking at a library of destinies sorted by weight, each one honorable, each one sufficient to its design. Let the lesson fold back into your room. Decide that tonight's weight is enough and no more. Put down the extra armful of thoughts that do not need you. Hold only what allows you to shine at a pace you can sustain. If it helps, imagine setting 3 stones on a low table. 1 small, 1 middle, 1 heavy. Take the middle stone in your hands. Feel how it is neither a burden nor a trinket, but the right scale for steadiness. Close with 1 more gentle tide. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Somewhere, a small red star is beginning a life so long it will outlast whole galaxies' moods. Somewhere, a blue giant is finishing its sprint and preparing to give its riches back to the dark. Somewhere, a sun-like star is holding a middle path, balancing pull and glow with quiet success. All of them are true, all of them are enough. And you here, held by simple gravity and simple breath, are allowed the same mercy. To let your first weight be your guide, to choose a pace that lets you last and to rest now, certain that enough is a beautiful number. Our Daystar, the sun at home. Let the day loosen its grip and let the room fall into an easy dusk. Soften your shoulders, unclench your jaw. If it feels good, rest 1 hand on your belly and 1 on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide nearby. Tonight we sit with our own star, the sun that rises without fail and writes gold across our mornings. Not a symbol, but a real place. Warm, steady, a home fire at the center of our sky. The sun is a medium star, made mostly of hydrogen with a generous share of helium. Its light reaches us in minutes once it leaves the surface. Yet the energy that becomes that light begins far deeper, where pressure and heat let small pieces join into larger ones and release energy. That energy does not rush outward. It wanders for ages through crowded layers, traded like a message in a busy room, until near the surface the path opens and light streams free. By the time it warms your winter face, the hard work happened long ago and far within. If you could pass through unharmed, you'd cross rooms with different ways of carrying heat. Deep inside, energy drifts outward by absorption and re-emission, directionless, patient. Farther out, the material simmers, hot rising, cool sinking. On the surface, this rolling shows up as bright, grainy cells. Centers radiant, edges dimmer, each living only minutes. The surface is not a floor, but the thin layer where gas turns transparent enough for light to escape. Above it lies a slender region, rich with spectral lines when light is spread into a rainbow, and higher still a rarefied crown, the corona, so hot it defies easy thought, stretching outward as a pale, invisible wind. That wind is the sun's breath, flowing in all directions, carrying a varnish of charged particles through the solar system. Earth's magnetic cocoon guides much of it around us. Where it meets our upper air near the poles, night blooms with moving colour, green and red curtains that ripple and fold. This is space weather, not a thing to fear but to notice. Our sky belongs to a larger rhythm. The sun has seasons. Its magnetic heart follows a repeating cycle. Over years, the surface grows busy with dark, freckled patches, sunspots, where magnetic fields slow rising heat, and with bright loops of gas tracing those fields aloft. Over years again, it quiets. The rhythm isn't metronomic, but it's real. During active times, gusts and flares can disturb radio signals and paint stronger auroras. Most days, it is calmer, still a giver more than a threat. Beneath names and diagrams sits a simple balance. Gravity leans inward, asking the star to shrink. Heat and pressure from core reactions lean outward. If the outward push grows, the star swells and cools. Reactions slow. If the push weakens, the star contracts and warms. Reactions quicken. A built-in thermostat keeps the middle path. This is part of why the sun has served us so steadily through all of human memory. Your days are written by this balance in quiet ways. Earth's axis leans, and that lean writes the seasons. Our hemisphere tips toward the sun and days lengthen, then away, and days draw in. We often imagine distance changes are decisive, but the bigger rhythm is tilt. The light's angle shifts, lengthening or shortening its arc across the sky. Plants read this and turn light into sugar. Animals time their waking. You read it too. Eyelids sense day through closed lashes. Your inner clock sets itself by dawn and dusk. With regular edges, the body relaxes into a schedule it can trust. Consider a single clear morning. Warmth touches your cheek, born of small pieces joining deep inside a star. After a long, crowded journey outward, those photons cross space to your skin, scattered in air to make the world visible, fell into leaves to become food, warmed a lake into mist, drew rain from sky to soil. They threw shadows that swung like clock hands while you worked small tasks. The ordinary fact is extraordinary enough. Sunlight spans many colours. Our eyes tune to a band where the sun is bright, which is why midday feels easy to see. There is warmth you cannot see but feel on skin, and crisp energies your eyes can't see that Earth's air handles aloft. The air scatters short blue waves more than long red ones, so the sky is blue and sunsets amber. At noon, light is white by balance. Toward evening, it softens as it passes through more air. The sun itself hasn't changed in those minutes. The path colored it for you and made an evening. Threaded through the brightness is magnetism. Lines of force bundle and pierce the surface, tying regions into arcs that sometimes flare. Sunspots often come in pairs or groups, cooler than their surroundings, sliding across the disk as the star turns. The sun does not spin like a solid ball. Its equator turns faster than higher latitudes. Over time, the field tangles, then relaxes and reverses, and the cycle begins again. Even in a stable life, parts move at different speeds. Health comes from letting them adjust, rather than forcing them to match. At our scale, the numbers overwhelm. Unimaginable energy released each second, yet the thin slice that reaches Earth is just right for oceans and breath. You don't need figures to feel the tone. Our star is generous and measured. It burns no brighter for applause and no dimmer for doubt. It keeps its agreements with gravity and the physics that let light be born, and does so without hurry. Take a slow breath in. Let it go a bit longer out. Imagine the photosphere's sound as a soft hiss, not a roar, a steady release of what the core prepared. Picture the surface as bright cloth with fine texture, threads rising and sinking at a pace too large to hold and too slow to frighten. See the corona as a pale flame that doesn't burn but reaches, touching every planet with a thin, persistent hand. There is kindness in how the sun meets our world. Earth's field steers much of the wind aside. Air filters the harshest edges. What reaches ground suits living things. Not perfectly. Some days are too strong and we seek shade. Some days clouds dim the sky and other rhythms appear. Over long spans, the sun changes so slowly we may treat it as constant. That slowness is a gift. We share a home with the sun as surely as with Earth. We live in its extended atmosphere and move through its seasons. Our inner clocks and our devices aim themselves by its rising and setting. Morning tea, late walks, curtains drawn at dusk. These rituals are braided with its presence. The intimacy can surprise. Stand in a total eclipse and you feel it. Bright disk gone, pearl crown revealed, air cooler, birds unsettled, humans quiet. Not omen, not trick, just geometry granting a clear look at the star's crown. The wonder lingers because the familiar turns freshly kind. Return to your breath. In for 4, out for 6. The sun will rise whether you watch or sleep. It has kept that promise through ancient winters and summers, through fireside stories and decisions in rooms like this. It is a symbol only after it is a fact, a warm sphere, a long balance, a light that travels and arrives. A very distant day will come when our star swells red and gives its outer layers back to space, and later its core will cool like a quiet ember. That future is far beyond us. What belongs to us is the middle chapter. Mornings arrive, leaves open, snow melts, winds move, seas breathe. You need not hold the ending to cherish the middle. Rest in what is faithful now. Let your room echo that faithfulness. Keep the darkness gentle, the air easy, the pillow shaped to your head. Let your breath be the daily sunrise, arriving without being asked. If thoughts flicker like sunspots, let them drift across and away. If a bright loop of worry lifts, let it arch and fade. You are not required to wrestle the sky, only to let rhythm do its work. One more tide. In for 4, a gathering. Out for 6, a giving. Somewhere beyond this night's horizon, the sun prepares a new day in the only way it knows, by continuing. Somewhere in your body, cells read dim signals that tell them when to rest and when to wake. They're turning toward morning too. Meet that morning when you're ready. For now, trust the Daystar to keep its watch, and trust yourself to sleep. The light will be there when you open your eyes. Solar weather. Gentle winds. Quiet storms. Let the night come closer the way a soft breeze closes a curtain, with no hurry and no demand. Settle your shoulders, unclench the jaw. If it feels good, rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide within reach. Tonight we listen to the weather of our Daystar. A weather without clouds, made not of rain but of light, breath, and the thinnest winds. Gentle most days, quietly powerful on others. The sun does not end at its edge. It exhales. From its outer atmosphere, a stream of tiny charged particles flows outward in all directions. The solar wind. Here near Earth it's more whisper than gust, yet steady enough to blow a great bubble around the sun and planets. The heliosphere, where the sun's breath meets the thin breath between the stars. It's a shelter of sorts, a home field stretched across deep space. Closer in, the wind has 2 broad moods. One is a fast, clean flow from coronal holes, open magnetic lanes where particles slip away. The other is a slower, tangled flow from looped, busier regions where magnetism arches back on itself. The fast wind can outrun the slow by several times, yet both are unimaginably thin. A teaspoon of ocean holds more particles than a roomful of solar wind near Earth. Its touch is subtle. Its reach is immense. As the sun turns, It carries its magnetic field outward with the wind like paint on a spinning brush. Field lines curl into a spiral, the Parker spiral, much like water from a rotating sprinkler. We live within those graceful arms, a sea of magnetism wrapping the planets and changing with the sun's cycle. Names aside, picture invisible lines, gently curved, giving space a quiet order. Most days, solar weather is simply this steady breath. Earth brings a shield to the meeting, its magnetic field, which guides most of the wind around us. The day side is pressed like a hand on a drum. The night side stretches into a long tail. Energy passes across the boundary as if dancers were testing steps. A little gets through, a little is stored then released, most is turned aside. It is safety with give, firm but able to bend. Some days, the sun writes weather in larger strokes. In active knotted magnetic regions, a sudden reweaving releases a burst of light and high-energy particles, a flare. Think of tangled threads snapping into a simpler weave and letting go of stored tension as a flash. Sometimes, those same regions loft a great arch of the outer atmosphere and send it out as a coronal mass ejection, CME, a slow, swelling front of plasma with its own magnetic field. A flare is swift light. A CME is matter and momentum. Either may miss us, or, if aimed our way, arrive days later as weather upon our shield. Even then, the story isn't alarm, it's choreography. A slow, dense front presses our magnetic cocoon. The two fields converse. If their directions align just so, energy crosses the boundary more easily, stirring currents in Earth's long magnetic tail. Those currents rush and settle, and part of that energy streams along magnetic lines into polar skies. There, oxygen and nitrogen glow and fall like veils. We call this aurora. And if you've seen it, you know it looks like breathing made visible. On especially lively days, currents can grow strong enough to disturb long wires and wide loops. Power grids, pipelines, high-frequency radio wavers. Satellites feel extra drag and need small adjustments. Pilots alter routes. Operators watch gauges. Forecasters send notes. Then the system settles. Much of modern life is built with this quiet weather in mind, and where it isn't, we learn and improve. Space weather is a teacher without malice. The sun's moods rise and fall. Over roughly 11 years, the surface moves from busy to quiet and back. Spots bloom and fade, loops arch and relax, coronal holes open and close. The solar wind's patterns shift. The spiral's arms change tone. We've watched long enough to know the rhythm, but not so long it ceases to surprise. Even a reliable cycle leaves room for individuality. The sun is steady and unique at once. You are allowed the same freedom. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Let the longer exhale be your gentle wind. The way you release what you don't need and keep what you do. Imagine your breath carrying your inner steadiness outward, as the sun's wind carries its signature through the system. Calm isn't forced, it's exhaled. Friendly anchors to hold. The solar wind is thin, a soft exhale that fills a vast bubble and shapes our neighborhood's borders. The sun's magnetism rides within it, curled by rotation into spirals. Most days, the meeting of that wind and our field is peaceful. A steady pressure we've lived with since the seas were young. On some days, tangled knots on the sun release light and lifted matter. If a CME heads our way, it arrives as a gentle front with a hidden field, and our shield answers with a dance. The sky answers with color. Instruments hum and settle. We learn a little more about our shelter. Treat this as a mirror for your own weather. You have a core that burns steadily, habits that carry your signature outward, boundaries that usually hold and sometimes need tending. There are days when a knot of thought releases and everything brightens, and days when a heavier front approaches and you must lean into your shield. Notice how your outbreath lengthens to meet such days, how you choose softer routes, how you let a little energy travel down your inner lines to places that turn it into harmless light. If you hear auroras may glow far from their usual home, and you have a clear northern or southern horizon, allow yourself a quiet midnight. Look for a pale arc, ghostly at first, like someone painting milk across the sky. Be patient. The arc may shift, curl, ripple, and gather color. The best displays aren't loud. They move like silk in water. When they end like a sigh. It's the same weather you live with always, made visible at last. The corona, Sun's outer atmosphere, is stranger than the simpler layers beneath. Far thinner, far hotter, held in loops and fans by magnetic lines. From open lanes, the fast wind slips away like water through a grate. From closed loops, the slow wind seeps, carrying each arc's imprint. In eclipse images, the corona looks like hair blown back, each strand a song about the magnetic day. No two crowns are alike. Engineers and forecasters watch with many eyes. Some instruments see surface light, others listen to the corona in colors we cannot see. Still others measure the wind near Earth, taking its pulse to read the next hour. The goal isn't control, but companionship, knowing when to expect a stronger breath, when a gentler one, when to ask satellites to tuck in, when to invite the world to look up. A kind way to live with a star. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Notice how your breath meets your edges and changes shape to fit, like solar wind meeting Earth's field and changing flow. The out-breath eases pressure. The in-breath prepares steadiness. Between them is a pause like a still lake. Don't name it. Feel it. And let the muscles around your eyes soften there. Storms pass. A front arrives. The sky answers. Currents move. Quiet returns. Nothing stays charged forever. The system spends what it must and restores itself. Your mind can do that. Let a thought arrive, move through and fade. Trust your shield is not a wall but a wise filter. That most approaching things are turned aside or turned into a brief, harmless glow. As night deepens, imagine the great bubble around us. Not a barrier, but a home. Inside, planets turn, moons glide, comets arc in long, slow loops. The sun's breath fills it gently. At the edge, far beyond most spacecraft, that breath meets the thin pressure between stars. There the wind slows, softens, and mingles with older winds from older suns. Even our star's weather becomes part of a wider calm. Close with one more tide. In for 4, gathering. Out for 6, releasing. The sun keeps breathing its delicate wind across the long dark rooms of space. Earth keeps holding its shield like cupped hands. Most days their meeting is so gentle you won't notice. On a few nights the sky remembers to paint itself. And here, in your own small weather, the same rule holds. Steady most days, sometimes lively, always returning to quiet. You belong to that rhythm. Let it carry you now. Pulses in the night, variable stars. Let the room fall into an easy darkness, and let your breath become a soft metronome that asks nothing of you. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we listen to stars that do not hold a single note but sway a little, brightening and dimming with a steadiness you can feel in your body. The sky is full of these gentle timekeepers. Their light is a pulse, a heartbeat written across distance, a reminder that constancy can include change. Picture a star not as a fixed bulb, but as a living sphere with layers that breathe. The outer skin expands a little and cools. The light softens. Then it settles inward, warms and brightens again. The rhythm is not chaos. It is a cycle, like your chest rising and falling, like the sea leaning in and leaning back. Some stars make their pulse in hours. Some take days. Others drift through months to complete a single breath. Stand beneath a very dark sky with a small telescope or even just patience. And with a chart and a pencil you could mark the cadence yourself, night after night, and feel the pattern become a friend. One family of these timekeepers lives in the middle of the sky's brightness. They are warm and proud, with periods of a few days, and each one's true brightness is tied to how long it takes to complete a cycle. The longer the beat, the stronger the light. This quiet rule lets us turn rhythm into distance. If you know the pattern's length, you can learn how bright the star truly is. And by comparing that with how bright it seems to us, you can learn how far away it must be. It's like hearing a familiar bell in the mist. You know how loud it should be, so you know how far you are from the tower. Whole galaxies have been measured by listening to these stellar bells. They are not loud, but they are reliable. Another family is smaller and older, beating more quickly, often in less than a day. Their homes are ancient star clusters, spheres of light where thousands of suns keep each other company. Their pulse is short and crisp, a steady tick inside the grand hush. Sailors once steered by lighthouses. Astronomers steer by these small regularities when they map the old parts of the galaxy. There is comfort in that image, tiny changes adding up to long understanding. Farther along the cooler end, there are elders whose outer layers drift out and in over many months. When they swell, they redden and soften. When they shrink, they sharpen and brighten. You could follow one with a notebook and see its mood move through the seasons. A long exhale and a long inhale that make a whole year feel like a single thought. Their light feeds the dust between stars, and from that dust, new stories will one day grow. Even their fading is a gift. Not every variation comes from a star breathing. Some of the pulses are shadows. Two stars orbit one another so closely that from our line of sight they take turns passing in front, and the light drops gently and then restores like the blink of a distant eye. The stars themselves are steady. The dance is what changes the brightness. Look long enough and you can draw the steps. A dip that is deep when the brighter star is hidden. A shallower dip when the dimmer one crosses. A rhythm as exact as a clock. When the timing shifts a little, it can betray an unseen companion tugging at the pair, a planet or a third star keeping quiet company. There are other reasons for a star's light to waver a little. Spots on the surface can grow and fade as magnetic fields wax and wane. As the star turns, spotted regions face us and then turn away, and the light rocks gently, the way a candle flickers when a hand moves between it and the wall. There are stars whose shapes are drawn into slight ellipses by a close companion's pull. As they turn, we see a little more or less of the stretched face, and the brightness nods in time with the orbit. The night is full of small, truthful changes. At the core of the breathing stars, a simple mechanism keeps the time. Imagine a layer not far below the surface that behaves like a tiny, honest valve. When the star compresses during its inward phase, that layer becomes better at trapping light, so heat builds below it like pressure under a lid. The heat pushes back, the star expands, and the layer becomes more transparent, letting light escape. With the stored energy gone, the star settles inward again and the cycle repeats. It is a child's game of squeeze and release, but written in radiance. No gears, no clockwork, just a property of matter that makes it easier to hold light at one moment and easier to let it pass at another. From this small truth emerges a whole symphony of pulses. Astronomers learn these rhythms by drawing light curves, simple graphs where brightness is on one axis and time on the other. Each family writes its own shape, a quick rise and slow fall, or the opposite, a plateau, a shoulder, a clean beat. Once you've seen a few, you can recognize them as easily as you recognize a friend's handwriting. The shapes carry stories about the star's size, its temperature, and the way its envelope moves. Even small irregularities matter. A slight shift in period from one cycle to the next, or a deep beat that emerges only now and then, can hint at a companion or a change in the star's inner layers. These pulses connect us to scale. When we know how far a pulsating star is in a nearby galaxy, we can count similar pulses in a farther one and step outward, rung by rung, building a map that stretches into places our hands will never touch. It is called a ladder, but it feels more like a set of voices calling to one another across widening fields. Closer voices teach us how to read the farther ones, and bit by bit the distances assemble into a landscape. The map is not perfect, nothing living is perfect, but it is honest, and it has taken us from the span between towns to the span between galaxies. Let the reflective part be easy. Your own life has variable seasons. Some days you are constant like the quiet white of midday. Others you brighten and dim with a rhythm you can't quite name. There is no shame in that. The stars do it openly. A change in light does not mean a failure of identity. It means breath is happening. It means a valve is keeping you safe by storing and releasing energy at a pace that makes sense for you. You can let your life be read in cycles without deciding that any one phase is the whole story. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Notice the small pool of calm that forms at the end of the out-breath. The gentle pause before the next inhale begins. That pause is part of the rhythm, not a mistake. Many variable stars spend a widening moment near their brightest or their faintest point. A lingering that makes the curve round rather than sharp. Your pause does the same for your night. It rounds the corners so you do not bump into them. If you want a few specific faces to remember, choose 3. Picture the strong, steady beating bright star whose period tells you its power and whose power tells you its distance, a faithful lantern for measuring space. Picture the quick, ancient tick in a crowded star cluster, a clock that keeps time for the oldest neighborhoods of the galaxy. Picture a long, soft elder whose glow rises and falls across months, gifting the dark with material for future clouds. Between these 3 lies much of the sky's gentle music. There are stars that vary because of sudden dramas, the kind that startle with outbursts, but you do not need those tonight. Keep to the kind that keep their promises. The breathers, the blinkers, the softly spotted. Their gifts are quiet and cumulative. Each cycle gives you another point on a curve, another confirmation that the world can change and still be dependable. If you ever step under a truly dark sky with a small telescope, or even just your eyes and a chart, you can join the old tradition of watching one star in particular and noting its brightness against a handful of nearby companions. Over nights and weeks you will see the pattern emerge, bright, then less bright, then bright again. You will understand why people kept notebooks and mailed their numbers to one another across oceans, stitching a single light curve out of many nights and many lives. It is a kind way to be part of something larger. You watch, you breathe, you write, and the star keeps folding its light into the shape you expect. Let the lesson return inward. You are allowed to dim without fear and brighten without apology. You are allowed to keep your own schedule, fast on some days, slow on others, without calling either one wrong. The world around you will sometimes be like a companion in an eclipsing pair, placing a small shadow across your light for a while and then moving on. The world within you will sometimes be like a layer that holds too much heat for a moment, and you will need to expand gently and let some of it go. This is not indulgence, it is safety. Take one more simple breath in for 4 and out for 6. Somewhere, a warm yellow star is breathing in and out over a few days, and its rhythm is quietly measuring a galaxy. Somewhere, an old small star is ticking in a crowded cluster, marking time older than cities. Somewhere, a soft red elder is taking its long inhale, and at the top of that breath, dust is forming that will one day drift into a cradle of light. The night is full of pulsars, none of them demanding, all of them honest. Let their steadiness include you. Let your own light be allowed to vary, and as you drift, hold only this. Change can be a form of constancy, and rhythm is a form of rest. Families of lights, open and globular clusters. Let the dark gather softly around you, and let your breath choose an easy tempo it can keep without effort. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we visit places where stars live together. Families of light moving through space in quiet company. Some are young and loose, with wide spaces between bright siblings. Others are ancient and tightly bound. A round hive of thousands of suns keeping one another close. Both kinds tell a simple truth. Even in a vast universe, belonging leaves a trace. Begin with the younger families. Imagine a patch of a galaxy's disk, where a giant cloud of gas has folded in on itself and sparked many stars at once. The result is a loose gathering, dozens to a few thousand members, arranged like a handful of salt scattered across velvet. Their stars are often young and blue-white, carrying the quick brightness of new lives. Because they were born together, they drift with similar motions and share a common chemical fingerprint. Over time, Tugged by the gravity of the galaxy and brushed by passing clouds, these groups spread out. Many will dissolve, their members wandering into the general population, still related by age and chemistry, but no longer travelling as one. These youthful clusters are found in the flat part of a spiral galaxy where new stars are common. They sit along the lanes where gas is plentiful, sometimes still wrapped in the thin mist of the cloud that birthed them. A few show delicate reflection light on surrounding dust, a blue haze made by starlight scattering off tiny grains. The pattern is easy to read, a mix of bright, massive stars that live fast, and many smaller, longer-lived stars that will still be shining when the group itself has faded into the background. If you could listen to such a cluster, it would sound like a room full of voices still learning how they harmonize. Now picture a different scene, far above and below the galaxy's thin disk. Here, in the halo that surrounds the main body, live the elders. Nearly spherical clusters that pack tens of thousands to millions of stars into a compact ball of light. Their stars are old, their colors warmer, their chemistry marked by a time when the universe had not yet gathered many heavy elements. These clusters are survivors. They have orbited the galaxy for billions of years, passing through tides and tugs that would shred a looser group. Gravity holds them in a tight conversation, and that conversation has lasted longer than any mountain range has stood on Earth. In the young, loose clusters, the pull among members is gentle. Stars occasionally drift away at the edges, and if the group passes near a large cloud or through a crowded spiral arm, a little more is shaved off. This slow evaporation is natural. It is how scattered families become part of the wider city of the galaxy. In the ancient round clusters, the gravity is firm. Members move quickly along curved paths, squeezed by the overall pull into a compact sphere. Encounters between stars are still rare, because stars are small compared to the distances between them, but their motions are influenced by one another enough that the cluster feels like a single system rather than a mere crowd. Astronomers tell these families apart not only by appearance, but by age, place, and chemistry. The younger groups live in the disk, are rich in heavier elements forged by previous generations, and host bright blue stars that cannot live long. The older groups dwell in the halo, carry fewer heavy elements, and show a smooth glow of long-lived stars. If you spread each cluster's stars on a simple chart of color and brightness, each family would trace a different pattern. The youthful ones would display hot, bright stars along with cooler companions. The ancient ones would show the long, steady path of aging suns and only a few bright outliers. Among the elders, there is a puzzle that delights more than it alarms. In many ancient clusters, a handful of stars look younger than their neighbors, bluer and brighter than time should allow. They are thought to be rejuvenated by close encounters or quiet mergers, receiving new fuel and appearing to reset their clocks. They are called stragglers, but they are not mistakes. They are reminders that even in an old community, surprises can appear. Families of light move as a unit through the galaxy's field. The young loose groups follow disk orbits, circling with the gas and the other young stars. And as they go, they feel the steady tug of the galaxy's mass and the subtle push of passing structures. The ancient round clusters travel on wide, often tilted paths that carry them far above the disk and back down again. When they brush past the crowded plain, tides can pull at their edges, lifting faint streams of stars that trail behind them like the frayed edge of a scarf. These thin streams are not losses to mourn. They are the natural exchange between a bound community and the place it moves through. If you want a picture to hold while you rest, let it be two small scenes. In the first, a handful of bright, newborn suns sit among traces of their birth cloud, blue-white and lively, their light brushing against dust and making a soft sheen. In the second, an ancient sphere glows like a lantern, its edge crowded, its center dense, every point a star, every orbit a quiet, long-kept promise. Both scenes are true at the same time, not far apart in the sky, each telling a different chapter of the same story. Things start together, share what they can, and then either dissolve gently into the whole or hold tight and endure. There is simple, useful science beneath the softness. Shared birth means shared age, so these clusters let us test how stars change over time. When you place all their members on the chart of color and brightness, you can see where the most massive stars have already left the main part of their lives and turned toward their later seasons. That turning point tells the cluster's age with quiet clarity. In the elders, the turning point sits far down the line, meaning only the smallest, longest-lived stars remain on the main road. In the youths, the turn sits high and blue. One family is a snapshot of early adulthood, the other a portrait of age. Together they teach how a star's weight chooses its pace. These groups also help us read the history of a galaxy. The halo's ancient clusters carry chemical signatures of early times and may trace events when the galaxy gathered smaller companions, taking their clusters as it grew. The disk's youthful groups show where the raw material for new stars still flows, marking the spiral patterns and the places where gas compresses. By listening to both, we learn how a city of stars was built and how it keeps renewing itself. Let the reflection be gentle. Families change. Some remain tight and recognizable for a long time. Others do their work and then spread out, their members carrying a shared beginning into separate lives. There is no single correct outcome. Belonging is not measured by how long a group stays together, but by the quiet ways it shapes each member. A loose association can teach you how to begin. A dense old circle can teach you how to endure. You may move between both in your lifetime. Seasons of gathering, seasons of dispersing, seasons of being held and of holding. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Notice how your body holds together as one piece, and yet is made of many small emotions, each keeping time with the others. That coordination is your own cluster dynamic. Gentle tugs, quiet balances, a center that persists without being rigid. If a thought drifts out along some tidal path, let it go. It may return later as a strand you can follow, or it may simply become part of the calm. If you ever find yourself under a dark sky with a small pair of binoculars, you can meet these families with your own eyes. In the plane of the galaxy, a small spray of blue-white points gathers like a jewelry pin against black cloth. In the high sky of autumn or spring, a round glow condenses toward the center, too rich to count, its edge melting into the dark. When you see them, you are looking at two ways to be together, briefly, brightly, and then apart, or densely, patiently, and then still together tomorrow. Both have beauty, both have purpose. Close with one more tide. In for 4, out for 6. Somewhere tonight, a youthful cluster is gliding through a lane of gas, its brightest members painting a little blue on nearby dust. Somewhere, an ancient sphere is crossing the galaxy's mid-plane, lifting faint streams from its edges and carrying on with its core intact. Somewhere a star once born in a family has drifted so far that it seems alone, and yet it still shares the age and chemistry of its first home. The night remembers these connections even when they are invisible. You are allowed the same grace. Hold what holds you, release what can be let go, and rest in the quiet knowledge that belonging has already left its light in you. Families of lights, open and globular clusters. Let the dark gather softly around you, and let your breath choose an easy tempo it can keep without effort. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we visit places where stars live together. Families of light moving through space in quiet company. Some are young and loose, with wide spaces between bright siblings. Others are ancient and tightly bound. A round hive of thousands of suns keeping one another close. Both kinds tell a simple truth. Even in a vast universe, belonging leaves a trace. Begin with the younger families. Imagine a patch of a galaxy's disk where a giant cloud of gas has folded in on itself and sparked many stars at once. The result is a loose gathering, dozens to a few thousand members, arranged like a handful of salt scattered across velvet. Their stars are often young and blue-white, carrying the quick brightness of new lives. Because they were born together, they drift with similar motions, and share a common chemical fingerprint. Over time, tugged by the gravity of the galaxy and brushed by passing clouds, these groups spread out. Many will dissolve, their members wandering into the general population, still related by age and chemistry, but no longer traveling as one. These youthful clusters are found in the flat part of a spiral galaxy where new stars are common. They sit along the lanes where gas is plentiful, sometimes still wrapped in the thin mist of the cloud that birthed them. A few show delicate reflection light on surrounding dust, a blue haze made by starlight scattering off tiny grains. The pattern is easy to read, a mix of bright, massive stars that live fast, and many smaller, longer-lived stars that will still be shining when the group itself has faded into the background. If you could listen to such a cluster, it would sound like a room full of voices still learning how they harmonize. Now picture a different scene, far above and below the galaxy's thin disk. Here, in the halo that surrounds the main body, live the elders. Nearly spherical clusters that pack tens of thousands to millions of stars into a compact ball of light. Their stars are old, their colors warmer, their chemistry marked by a time when the universe had not yet gathered many heavy elements. These clusters are survivors. They have orbited the galaxy for billions of years, passing through tides and tugs that would shred a looser group. Gravity holds them in a tight conversation, and that conversation has lasted longer than any mountain range has stood on Earth. In the young, loose clusters, the pull among members is gentle. Stars occasionally drift away at the edges, and if the group passes near a large cloud or through a crowded spiral arm, a little more is shaved off. This slow evaporation is natural. It is how scattered families become part of the wider city of the galaxy. In the ancient round clusters, the gravity is firm. Members move quickly along curved paths, squeezed by the overall pull into a compact sphere. Encounters between stars are still rare, because stars are small compared to the distances between them, but their motions are influenced by one another enough that the cluster feels like a single system rather than a mere crowd. Astronomers tell these families apart not only by appearance, but by age, place, and chemistry. The younger groups live in the disk, are rich in heavier elements forged by previous generations, and host bright blue stars that cannot live long. The older groups dwell in the halo, carry fewer heavy elements, and show a smooth glow of long-lived stars. If you spread each cluster's stars on a simple chart of color and brightness, each family would trace a different pattern. The youthful ones would display hot, bright stars along with cooler companions. The ancient ones would show the long, steady path of aging suns and only a few bright outliers. Among the elders, there is a puzzle that delights more than it alarms. In many ancient clusters, a handful of stars look younger than their neighbors, bluer and brighter than time should allow. They are thought to be rejuvenated by close encounters or quiet mergers, receiving new fuel and appearing to reset their clocks. They are called stragglers, but they are not mistakes. They are reminders that even in an old community, surprises can appear. Families of light move as a unit through the galaxy's field. The young loose groups follow disk orbits, circling with the gas and the other young stars. And as they go, they feel the steady tug of the galaxy's mass and the subtle push of passing structures. The ancient round clusters travel on wide, often tilted paths that carry them far above the disk and back down again. When they brush past the crowded plain, tides can pull at their edges, lifting faint streams of stars that trail behind them like the frayed edge of a scarf. These thin streams are not losses to mourn. They are the natural exchange between a bound community and the place it moves through. If you want a picture to hold while you rest, let it be two small scenes. In the first, a handful of bright, newborn suns sit among traces of their birth cloud, blue-white and lively, their light brushing against dust and making a soft sheen. In the second, an ancient sphere glows like a lantern, its edge crowded, its center dense, every point a star, every orbit a quiet, long-kept promise. Both scenes are true at the same time, not far apart in the sky, each telling a different chapter of the same story. Things start together, share what they can, and then either dissolve gently into the whole or hold tight and endure. There is simple, useful science beneath the softness. Shared birth means shared age, so these clusters let us test how stars change over time. When you place all their members on the chart of color and brightness, you can see where the most massive stars have already left the main part of their lives and turned toward their later seasons. That turning point tells the cluster's age with quiet clarity. In the elders, the turning point sits far down the line, meaning only the smallest, longest-lived stars remain on the main road. In the youths, the turn sits high and blue. One family is a snapshot of early adulthood, the other a portrait of age. Together they teach how a star's weight chooses its pace. These groups also help us read the history of a galaxy. The halo's ancient clusters carry chemical signatures of early times and may trace events when the galaxy gathered smaller companions, taking their clusters as it grew. The disk's youthful groups show where the raw material for new stars still flows, marking the spiral patterns and the places where gas compresses. By listening to both, we learn how a city of stars was built and how it keeps renewing itself. Let the reflection be gentle. Families change. Some remain tight and recognizable for a long time. Others do their work and then spread out, their members carrying a shared beginning into separate lives. There is no single correct outcome. Belonging is not measured by how long a group stays together, but by the quiet ways it shapes each member. A loose association can teach you how to begin. A dense old circle can teach you how to endure. You may move between both in your lifetime. Seasons of gathering, seasons of dispersing, seasons of being held and of holding. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Notice how your body holds together as one piece, and yet is made of many small emotions, each keeping time with the others. That coordination is your own cluster dynamic. Gentle tugs, quiet balances, a center that persists without being rigid. If a thought drifts out along some tidal path, let it go. It may return later as a strand you can follow, or it may simply become part of the calm. If you ever find yourself under a dark sky with a small pair of binoculars, you can meet these families with your own eyes. In the plane of the galaxy, a small spray of blue-white points gathers like a jewelry pin against black cloth. In the high sky of autumn or spring, a round glow condenses toward the center, too rich to count, its edge melting into the dark. When you see them, you are looking at two ways to be together, briefly, brightly, and then apart, or densely, patiently, and then still together tomorrow. Both have beauty, both have purpose. Close with one more tide. In for 4, out for 6. Somewhere tonight, a youthful cluster is gliding through a lane of gas, its brightest members painting a little blue on nearby dust. Somewhere, an ancient sphere is crossing the galaxy's mid-plane, lifting faint streams from its edges and carrying on with its core intact. Somewhere a star once born in a family has drifted so far that it seems alone, and yet it still shares the age and chemistry of its first home. The night remembers these connections even when they are invisible. You are allowed the same grace. Hold what holds you, release what can be let go, and rest in the quiet knowledge that belonging has already left its light in you. Reading a rainbow, spectra and ingredients. Let the room fall into a soft hush, and let your breath find a pace that feels like tide water on a quiet shore. In for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight, we will read a rainbow, not the wide arch after rain, but the thin, precise ribbon that starlight becomes when it is gently spread apart. In that ribbon are tiny stories, colors that appear, colors that are missing, lines as fine as hair, each one a clue. You do not need equations to follow them. You only need the patience that stars themselves use to send their light. Begin with a simple picture. A star shines with a smooth glow, set mostly by its surface temperature. If you pass that glow through a prism or a fine grating, the white resolves into a continuous spread, red to blue, like a silk ribbon laid flat. But the ribbon is not perfectly smooth. Very narrow gaps and dimples appear at specific colors, as if small bites have been taken. Those are absorption lines, places where atoms and ions in the layers above the surface have kept photons of just the right energy for themselves. Each element prefers its own set of energies. Hydrogen has its signature, sodium has another. Calcium, iron, oxygen, many more, all carry their own patterns. When you read the pattern, you are reading ingredients. The idea is friendlier than it sounds. Atoms are like small instruments that only play certain notes. When the right note of light passes by, the atom can take it in, stepping to a higher state. The result is a missing thread in the ribbon where that note would have been. Spread a star's light, and you see not only the color that tells you temperature, but also the fine barcode of elements in the atmosphere above the glowing layers. The rainbow becomes a page of print. Some lines are strong and easy to see, even with modest tools. A pair in the buttery part of the spectrum belongs to sodium. Another pair deeper toward violet belongs to calcium. There are families of lines from hydrogen that step toward the blue, each one a little nearer than the last. In cooler stars, molecules can survive in the outer layers, and their combined patterns darken whole regions in a soft wash rather than a single thread. In hotter stars, the atoms are more stripped, and their lines shift to forms that only appear when electrons are held more loosely. The texture of the ribbon changes with temperature as surely as color does. Widen the view a little, and the lines begin to carry motion. If a star is moving toward you, the whole pattern slides a touch toward blue. If it is moving away, the pattern shifts toward red. The amount of shift is small but reliable, and from it you can learn the speed along the line of sight. If a star spins rapidly, its surface carries light toward and away at once, and the lines broaden into gentle wings. If strong magnetic fields pass through the outer layers, some lines split and their shapes change, a quiet sign that invisible loops and arcs are threading the atmosphere. Pressure leaves its own mark by widening certain lines, telling you about the density in the layers where they form. The ribbon becomes a weather report. Temperature, motion, pressure, field, all legible in the same narrow band. The same idea lets us notice small companions we cannot see directly. When a planet tugs on its star, the star sways a little, and the pattern of lines slides rhythmically red, then blue, then red again. The change is so slight that it takes great care to measure, but the rhythm is faithful. In that gentle shuffle, a world announces itself. Sometimes a planet passes in front of the star, and a faint, thin imprint of the planet's air appears against the star's light, as if someone held a clear leaf in front of a lamp. Certain molecules in that air remove very specific notes, and we learn what the world's sky is made of by the small subtraction it makes. Between us and a distant star, there may be thin veils of gas and dust. Those veils speak too. Gas in the space between stars can draw narrow lines at its own favorite colors, superimposed on the star's ribbon. Dust lowers and reddens the whole light, favoring the warm end over the cool. With practice, the additions and subtractions can be untangled. The foreground becomes a separate page, the star another. Reading is partly about what belongs where. Even galaxies, when spread into ribbons, confess their distance and motion. Their lines shift because space itself is stretching. The pattern slides redward with distance, and the amount of slide becomes a measure of how far the light has traveled. In this way, a single tool, the splitting of light into its notes, scales from the skin of a nearby star to the span between clusters of galaxies. The instrument does not change, only the size of the story does. You can keep the science gentle by remembering 3 anchors. First, color gives temperature. A ribbon peaking deeper in red means cooler. A ribbon peaking closer to blue means hotter. The middle leans white. Second, narrow lines give ingredients. Their positions are a table of contents for the atoms and molecules in the outer layers. Third, the shapes and positions of lines give conditions and motion. How broad, how split, how shifted. From these 3, almost everything practical follows. Let the reflection be easy. There is a grace in learning from what is there and what is missing. Stars let their outer layers steal tiny notes of light, and by those absences, we learn who they are. People speak like this too. A pause can tell you as much as a sentence. A silence around a subject can mark its weight without naming it. Reading a life kindly involves listening for both the line and the gap. Tonight, let yourself be read in that way by no one but yourself. Notice what you are eager to say and what you leave unspoken, and consider that both are honest parts of your spectrum. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Notice how a single breath contains its own credits and blanks. The coolness at the tip of the nose, the warmth under the blanket, the quiet behind the eyes, the small pool of stillness at the end of the exhale before the inhale begins. Not everything must be filled. The gaps make the rhythm gentle. If you ever hold a small prism in sunlight and let the beam paint a strip across a wall, you are doing the first step of this reading. If you could lay a very fine grating in that beam and dim the room, you would begin to see the thin lines cut across the colors, little whispers of the atoms between the lamp and your eye. The world is telling you what it contains all the time. You do not always need a larger instrument to listen. When astronomers organize stars by their spectra, a sequence emerges from hottest to coolest. Each class defined not only by color, but by which lines are strongest or missing. It is not a rigid ladder. It is a gentle slope. As you move down the slope, hydrogen's lines swell and then soften. Metals step forward. Molecules finally appear and take broad swaths for themselves. A careful observer can place an unfamiliar star on this slope by the company its lines keep. Classification here is not a box. It is a description of light's habits. The elements in a star speak to time as well as temperature. Heavy elements are the ash of older lives, made in deep cores and in final endings, then mixed into the clouds that follow. A star that formed early speaks a simpler dialect in its lines, with fewer heavy notes. A star born later shows a richer vocabulary. When you measure these weights across many stars, you map the slow enrichment of a galaxy, the way each generation leaves more to the next. The rainbow becomes an archive. Let the lesson tip inward once more. You too are an archive. You carry traces of older days in the way you respond to light and quiet, in the words you favor, in the pauses you keep. You are not required to interpret every line tonight. It is enough to know that your ribbon would resolve into patterns if you spread it out, and that those patterns would make sense to anyone who looked with patience and care. You are legible in that way to yourself. Trust that. A final breath in for 4 and out for 6. Imagine a thin beam of starlight arriving at an instrument after years of travel, entering a slit, fanning into a ribbon, and laying down its colors on a small sensor. The lines appear, steady as heartbeat marks on paper. Someone will measure them tomorrow and learn something true. For now, you can rest in the knowledge that truth does not always shout. Sometimes it lies quiet in a missing thread, waiting for a calm eye. Let your room be that calm. Let your body be the instrument. Let the night read you gently and find you complete, with room for color and room for silence, a spectrum at peace. Worlds by shadow, exoplanets in starlight. Let the room soften until it feels like velvet, and let your breath slip into an easy pattern you don't have to supervise. In for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we look for worlds not by seeing their faces, but by noticing their shadows. Most planets around other stars are found this way, as small dimmings and gentle tugs written into starlight. It is not a loud technique. It is listening for a whisper in a spacious room and trusting that the whisper carries truth. Imagine a star as a steady lantern far away, its glow reaching us as a clean line. If a planet passes in front of that lantern from our point of view, the light falls by a tiny amount for a little while. The dip has a shape as regular as the planet's orbit, a soft drop as the world's edge begins to cross, a flat bottom while it is fully in front, a mirror climb as it leaves. One crossing might be an accident. 2 crossings begin to persuade. 3 crossings turn a suspicion into a clock. Measure how deep the dip is, and you learn the planet's size compared to the star. Measure how long it takes between dips, and you learn the length of the planet's year. It is simple in idea and subtle in practice, because the dimming can be no more than a fraction of a percent, like noticing that a room feels the tiniest bit dimmer when a small moth flies across a distant lamp. Some worlds never cut across their stars from our line of sight, but they still reveal themselves by gravity's quiet pull. As a planet orbits, it tugs on its star, and the star sways in a small circle about their common center. To us, that sway shows up as a rhythm in the star's spectrum, the pattern of its colors sliding slightly toward blue as it moves toward us and toward red as it moves away. The amount of slide gives the speed of that motion along our line of sight. From that you can learn a minimum mass for the planet. And when this dance is seen together with the shadow of a transit, you can combine size and mass to learn density, and from density you can whisper whether a world is likely rock, ice, or gas. Two small signatures, measured with patience, become a sketch of a place you may never see. Sometimes the shadow is not a crossing, but a softening and brightening over a full orbit. A close-in world shows phases, much like our moon, and the day side it presents to us waxes and wanes. The total light from star and planet rises slightly when the bright hemisphere faces us and falls when the dark hemisphere turns our way. In that gentle swell lies information about clouds, heat and winds on a world you cannot resolve. If the planet is very near its star, a tiny blink can appear when it slips behind, the day side briefly hidden. The star seems to breathe, and that breath tells us something about the planet's temperature and reflective skin. There are rarer ways, each with its own tone. A foreground star passing in front of a background star can act as a lens and briefly magnify the background light. And if that foreground star carries a planet, a smaller brightening folds into the larger one. The event is one time only, and you will never see the same star lens again in the same way. But the signature is clean while it lasts. Elsewhere, a young giant planet can sometimes be imaged directly as a faint ember next to a dimmed star, thanks to instruments that blot out the star's glare and let the planet's warm glow speak. It is like shading your eyes to glimpse a firefly near a street lamp. Worlds found by shadow can also tell us what their skies contain. When a planet transits, a thin halo of its atmosphere filters starlight. Certain colors are eaten a little more than others, and the depth of the dip changes very slightly with wavelength. From those changes, you can infer the presence of specific gases, the thickness of cloud decks, even hints of hazes produced by light and chemistry. The signal is small, and certainty comes slowly, but honesty lives in these small adjustments. You are reading a skyline from a silhouette. Not every dip is a planet's shadow. Star spots drifting across the surface can lower the light. A pair of stars eclipsing each other can mimic a planetary transit if their light is blended with a third star along our line of sight. Instruments and careful checks help separate these lookalikes from the real thing. Consistency over time, the exact shape of the dip, and the color dependence all help tell you whether you are seeing a world or a trick of light. The goal is not to rush to yes, it is to arrive at yes that stays yes. If you collect many discoveries and lay them side by side, patterns emerge. Close-in giants that circle in a handful of days, roasted and stretched. Chains of small worlds locked in near commensurate rhythms, each tugging the next so that their transit times drift by minutes and then return. A metronome with a human heartbeat. Compact systems where 5 or 6 planets would all fit comfortably inside the orbit of Mercury, and yet keep spectacular order. Planets the size of Earth circling faint. Cool stars where the habitable zone is close and the year is counted in days. The catalogue is not the universe. It is a sample shaped by what our methods can see. But already it is generous. There is a kindness in remembering biases. Transits favor orbits aligned just so. Radial velocity searches favor heavier worlds close in because they tug more strongly. Imaging favors the young and the far-flung. Microlensing favors alignments that do not repeat. We do not see everything yet, and we never will. But each method fills a different shelf in the same library. And over time, the shelves begin to tell a consistent story. Planets are common. Systems are varied. Order appears in many guises, and so does surprise. Hold this thought as you breathe. Most of the worlds we know were found not by faces, but by effects. A shadow that dimmed a star by 1 part in 10,000. a sway that shifted a spectral line by less than 1,000th of its width, a phase curve that rose by a whisper of a percent. We live in an era where such quiet proofs are possible and routine. It is a testament to patience, to instruments that prefer honesty over drama, and to the idea that truth can be approached by listening more carefully than before. If you need a picture, imagine sitting in a dark theatre with a single candle on stage. A moth circles once every few minutes, and each time it crosses the candle, the light on your face softens just noticeably enough. You begin to time the crossings and realize the moth's path is regular. Now imagine that with every crossing, a faint scent also grows and fades, telling you the air around the flame has a trace of something sweet. You have never touched the candle. You have never held the moth, and yet you know the orbit, the pace, and a little of the air. This is the feeling of exoplanets read by shadow. There is room for reflection in this, because you also leave shadows that tell the shape of you. You make a room slightly quieter when you enter because you listen, and the quiet tells attentive people you have arrived. You ask one kind question at a regular hour, and that rhythm tells someone they are remembered. You shade yourself from a bright worry, and the dimming of that harsh light reveals the outline of what matters. Shadows are not only absences, they are maps of presence. They teach by subtraction what could not be learned by glare. Breathe in for 4 and out for 6. Let the exhale be a small eclipse, a soft covering and uncovering that repeats without strain. Notice how your body settles into timing the way planets do, easing into a lane and keeping it. Even if thoughts drift, the rhythm returns. Even if a worry tugs, the line settles. There is a reason this kind of looking suits bedtime. It rewards quiet and keeps its promises to the patient. If you ever stand under a truly dark sky, remember that nearly every star you see likely hosts a family of worlds. You will not see those planets, not with your eyes alone, but you can know they are there because light bends, lines shift, shadows pass, and careful minds have charted these changes. Somewhere, a small rocky world turns with a short year around a cool red star. Somewhere, a pair of warm mini-Neptunes keep each other honest, arriving a few minutes early and then a few minutes late as they trade momentum like courteous dancers. Somewhere, a giant close to its sun shows a bright face, and then a dark one, and then bright again. A silver coin turning slowly in the dark. Close simply, the night is full of lanterns, and between you and those lanterns pass many shadows. We learn from them without needing to catch them. We accept the small dip, the slight tug, the faithful timing, and from those we build maps of places we may never visit. That is enough. Your breath can be a signal measured the same way, a regular change of light inside your chest. Count once more in for 4 and out for 6. Let the rest of the map write itself while you sleep. The long middle. Life on the main sequence. Let the room turn quiet the way a lake turns to glass at evening, slowly, without a line where it begins. Settle your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. If it feels good, rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide close. Tonight we enter the long middle of a star's life, the main sequence, where steadiness is not a pause but a purpose. Imagine a star after its first trials, when newborn heat has found balance with gravity's pull. The core stays warm enough to join the simplest building blocks into something sturdier, and the energy of that joining pushes outward to match the inward lean. Nothing dramatic shows on the surface. There is only a calm that repeats. From this calm light flows. This is the long chapter where a star keeps its promise to the forces that made it. In this middle, a star's first weight chooses its color and pace. Small ones glow ember red and move carefully, mixing their insides so well that they stretch this chapter beyond imagination. Middle stars wear white or pale gold and measure time in billions of years, patient enough to raise planets from cooling rock to stories. Massive stars burn blue-white and finish the middle quickly, not from carelessness, but because their own weight demands a faster breath to stand up to gravity. Different tempos, same music. Gravity inward, pressure outward. Light as the record of their truce. Beneath the surface, the long middle has its own circulation. In some stars, the deep interior is a quiet radiance where energy creeps outward step by step, while the outer layers roll and overturn, hot rising, cool sinking, a soft churning that leaves a mottled texture on the face. In others, the core itself is the rolling pot, drawing in fresh fuel and carrying ash outward, while the outer layers let energy drift. Which pattern appears depends on mass and temperature, but the message is constant. Stability is not stillness. It is motion arranged. The surface tells the story in color and modest weather. Granules bloom and fade, bright in the center and darker at the edge. Continent-sized breaths. Magnetic fields rise, twist and relax, drawing freckles that come and go, arches that lift and fall. To the eye, the light scarcely wobbles. To careful instruments, the rhythm is obvious. A cycle of busier years and calmer ones. A heartbeat stretched into seasons. A star in its middle is like a person who knows their work and has learned when to rest. In the core, the arithmetic is simple and inexorable. Fresh fuel becomes a steadier element. The steady element gathers as ash. This ash is not failure. It is the ledger that proves work was done. As it piles up, the ways energy moves through the center shift. The core adjusts by tiny increments, and the star answers with subtle changes in brightness, color, and weather. None of it is sudden. The long middle is a slope, not a cliff. Planets, if they formed, live their small lives in that forgiving stability. Days arrive with regular light. The narrow band of warmth that cradles oceans stays where it should for a very long time. If there are minds on one of those worlds, they learn to trust dawn. They set clocks by the edges between dark and light. They build rituals on the assumption that tomorrow will look like today, and most of the time it does. A main sequence star is a reliable employer. The work is consistent, the hours known, the benefits generous. Once in a while, even a steady star clears its throat. A flare pops from a tangled knot. A gust rises in the thin crown above the surface. On shielded worlds, most of this weather glances off or paints the sky with slow-moving curtains. On bare worlds, the lesson is harsher, but the star does not throw fits. It rearranges and settles, and the ledger in the core keeps its slow additions. The river remains broad, with only occasional riffles. If you want the main sequence with the least effort, hold 3 thoughts. First, balance. Gravity pulls, heat and pressure reply, and the reply matches the pull. Second, pace. Heavier stars speak quickly and briefly. Lighter stars speak slowly and long. Middling stars speak in human-friendly spans. Third, change that accumulates. Ash builds where fuel once was, and the flow of energy shifts so gently that only patience notices. From these 3, the rest follows. Let the reflection run alongside. Your life has a main sequence too, a stretch where you hold balance between what presses in and what you can offer out. It is not a pause between excitement and decline. It is the work itself. You wake, you give, you repair, you learn, you rest, you repeat. In that repetition, identity appears. In that repetition, light is made. You do not need constant novelty. You need a rhythm you can keep without breaking. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Notice how the long exhale stretches time, as a star turns quick joinings into a long stream of light. Stability feels like this, not rigid, not slack, but exact enough pressure that the structure holds. If a thought presses in, let breath be the kind answer. If a feeling threatens to collapse the day inward, add gentle warmth with a longer exhale. The main sequence of a person is made from moves like these. As decades pass in a star's middle, quiet changes add up to visible ones. A sun-like star very slowly brightens. Helium ash grows in the core. The layer where reactions happen shifts. Surface cycles amble and meander. Planets feel it as a faint drift. Slightly different winds, slightly different seasons compared to the deep past. The star is not breaking its promise. It is honoring that even balance has seasons. Long before drama, light widens and asks for adjustment. Living things often find a way. For stars much smaller than the Sun, the long middle may be so long that even the universe has not yet watched one finish. These modest red lights keep their fuel thoroughly mixed and burn so carefully that they outlast eras. It is a kind thought that countless small stars are whispering their midlives unnoticed, patient beyond any story. For very massive stars, the middle is short and brilliant. Their weight insists on a fast flow through the core, and they race toward later chapters with urgency that looks like arrogance but is only physics. Softening the diagram helps. Picture a quiet avenue lined with lamps of different colors. At the blue end, tall, bright lamps burn through their oil quickly. At the golden middle, lamps are balanced and familiar, perfect for nightly walks. At the amber end, lamps are low and enduring. One could leave them lit for lifetimes and still find them burning. All share a design, a wick meeting a pool, a flame matched to its fuel, a glass that breathes. The difference is a scale and speed. There is deeper music in the long middle, vibrations that ring the whole sphere. The surface moves in patterns too small for eyes, and those tones carry secrets. How deep layers lie, how fast parts turn, how the core is changing. Listening with careful instruments is like tapping a bell to learn its thickness. The notes drift as the star ages, and from the drift we learn how far along the middle has traveled. Even in stability, a signature evolves. Bring the lesson home. The reliable parts of your day are not the dull parts. They make meaning possible. A tidy morning sink, a walk at dusk, a glass of water by the bed, a sentence you say when you turn out the light. These are main sequence habits. They do not trap you, they carry you. When life asks for sprints, you sprint. When it invites endurance, you endure because your middle is practiced. If worry says you should be brighter, faster, more impressive, remember how lifetime shortens when fuel is spent too quickly. Constant dazzle is not a star's goal. Constancy is. When your mind begs for spectacle, offer steadiness. A longer exhale, a quiet room, a decision to repeat what works. The glow from that choice reaches farther than drama and lasts longer. Breathe for 4 and out for 6. Let your attention rise like warm air and fall back like cool air in a simple loop. The long middle is this loop repeated kindly. If a memory presses in, let it become ash, not waste, evidence that work was done. Let it settle where it should, while fresh breath moves where it needs to go. You are not required to solve the night. You are invited to keep the truce that lets light be made. A main sequence star does not ask for applause. It keeps its covenants with gravity and with its own center. And from that faithfulness come dawns, tides, shadows, and seasons. If there are minds beneath its light, they learn to tell time by it, to heal in its warmth, to tell stories of its rising when words are still new. The star does not hear these things. It does not need to. It is enough that they are true, close with one more tide. In for 4, a gathering. Out for 6, a giving. Somewhere a blue-white star is writing a short, bright chapter. Somewhere a small red star keeps a pace so slow the ink barely moves, and still the sentence is perfect. Somewhere a sun like ours is practicing its balance. And on a small world nearby, oceans and trees and people live by that practice. The long middle holds them all. It will hold you through this night. Let your breath keep the covenant. Let your body be the lamp. Let the steady part of you do its quiet work until sleep arrives. Not a finish, but the next faithful line. Evening of a star. Red giant seasons. Let the room lean into night the way a field leans into autumn, quietly, with color softening at the edges. Ease your shoulders down. Unclench your jaw. If it feels good, rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide beside you. Tonight we walk through the later seasons of a star's life, when it swells into a gentle giant and trades youthful heat for breadth and glow. This is not collapse and not frenzy. It is evening. Picture a star that has kept its long promise through a middle life of balance. Deep inside, The simplest fuel has been joined into something steadier for so long that the core is now filled with the ash of that work. The ash does not burn at the old temperature. The center contracts, growing denser and warmer, while the layers just outside the core find a new way to shine. They begin to fuse in a shell wrapped around the heart, and that shell becomes a bright ring of work. Energy pours outward more than before, and the outer envelope relaxes and drifts far from the center. The surface cools as it expands. Color slides toward warm gold and deep ember. The star becomes large, tender, luminous. Evening has begun. From far away, the change is quiet drama. A star, once modest in size, can grow until its edge would reach beyond the orbit where worlds once strolled. The surface temperature, though lower, smears across a huge area, and so the total light can rise. The face turns soft, not because it is weak, but because the bustle has moved inward, leaving the surface to glow with a low, kind tone. If you could stand in that atmosphere, you would feel the gas so extended that it would seem like a warm, thin fog. Cells of rising and sinking material the size of whole planets, a slow simmer across the skin. Inside, the core continues its contraction, and the temperature climbs toward a new threshold. For stars like our Sun, the heart becomes so dense that the matter behaves in a remarkable, rigid way that resists further compression without the usual increase in temperature. The heat creeps higher anyway until, in a brief inward event, the new fuel lights. Helium finds a way to join and become carbon, and in a breath the center shifts from a held breath to a steady song. Outwardly, the star only steadies. Inwardly, a new chapter begins. Heavier stars reach this new fire more gradually, without the suddenness. But the outcome is shared. The core shines again, now with a different script, while the outer layers settle closer for a while. This new steadiness writes another season. The star withdraws a little from its maximum, grows somewhat hotter at the surface, and holds a calm, bright pose. Later, as the helium dwindles, a second evening arrives. Fusion returns to shells wrapped around the center, one burning the older fuel, one burning the newer, and the envelope swells again, larger and cooler than before. These later seasons can be rhythmic. The star may breathe in long, slow beats, its light gently rising and falling over months, a lantern swaying on a patient wind. In these pulses, the outer layers thicken and thin, and in the thinning, small grains condense, dust born in warm darkness. That dust is not clutter. It is a gift shaped from carbon and oxygen made in the deep heart. Winds lift the dust outward grain by grain. Light itself pushes on the grains the way a river pushes leaves, and gas follows. A steady breeze becomes an outflow that carries the star's story into space. Over thousands of years, the breeze carves a shell around the star, a fragile skin of gas and dust that expands and cools, mixing with the broader night. In time, that shell will drift apart and become part of a cloud where new stars will be cradled. Evening here is a season of generosity. The atmosphere of a red giant is a theatre for patterns. Convection raises warm plumes and lowers cool curtains. Magnetic threads drift and tangle on scales too large to imagine. Molecules survive where once heat would have torn them apart, and their presence paints the spectrum with deep, soft bands. To careful instruments, the surface looks mottled. Patchwork islands brighter here, darker there, changing over weeks. The star is not breaking its poise. It is conducting heat through a thicker robe. Some red giants are elders famous for their slow heartbeat. Their brightness rises and falls like a tide tied to months, even a year. You could keep a notebook and watch the rhythm return. Soft crest after soft crest, a reliable comfort in the sky. Each cycle lifts a bit more matter outward. Over many cycles, the outflow becomes a veil that dims the star slightly and reddens it further. What looks like fading is often simply clothing, the star wrapped in what it has made. In the deeper interior, the work is tidy. Helium becomes carbon and a breath of oxygen. For heavier stars, further joinings happen in nested rooms, each ring burning a different fuel for a shorter time, like a house where many kitchens cook at once, each with its own recipe and timer. But in the kind of star that warms our imaginations when we speak of evening, the center will not descend into every recipe. There is a graceful limit. When the new fuel wanes and the shells do what they can, the envelope loosens again and the winds thicken, and the star sets about returning what it borrowed from the universe, cleaned and enriched by long labor. You could think of this as a tree in late season, turning light into sugar all summer, then letting leaves go. The leaves are not failure. They are the method by which the tree protects its core and feeds the soil. The giant's winds are leaves. The dust is mulch. The shell that forms is a meadow that will seed another grove. The core that remains is not a cinder, but a kept promise, a dense, bright ember that will cool slowly for ages. There is a beauty in how the end of the giant phase reveals the shell it has made. As the envelope thins, the hot core peeks out, and its sharp light touches the gas drifting away. The shell glows in delicate colors, a lantern lit from within, expanding into the dark. The glow is temporary on cosmic clocks, but long enough for any watcher with patience to see. In a few tens of thousands of years, the light dims, the shell disperses, and only the ember remains, small and white and intense, cooling without fuel, steady as a kept vow. While the giant still holds its breadth, worlds around it feel the change. The inner ones may be swallowed or scorched, their orbits dragged by the deeper air. Farther ones glimpse a red sun and long twilight days. If any small bodies circle far away, they see the wind thicken and begin to snow dust. In their cold, that dust becomes a crust that will carry the giant's memory into the next cloud, where it will dissolve and feed young disks. Evening, again, is a way of giving. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Let the exhale lengthen, as if you were wearing a larger robe and needed a little more time to move comfortably. Imagine your own life with seasons this gentle, a long middle of daily practice and then a widening, not of worry but of room, a loosening of what must be carried tightly. You begin to let little things go, and they do not fall uselessly. They settle somewhere they will be needed by someone you will never meet. It is not grand, it is kind. The giant's color is a reassurance that warmth can be soft. The light is less about sharp edges and more about glow. You can live like that at day's end. You do not have to burn with the blue of a sprinter. You can make rooms comfortable. You can be a lamp that reaches around corners rather than a spotlight. The star in evening carries more light in absolute amount than it did in youth, but spreads it across a wider face so that each patch is calm. You can spread yourself that way and be no less bright. The story of evening holds a small caution wrapped in mercy. There are tides and pulls even in this gentleness. The star cannot keep everything. It must relax its grip. Holding too tightly would tangle it. Letting go makes a path for a future it will not see. The lesson is not to drop what matters. It is to place it where it can be of use. The winds know how. If you want one simple image to keep as sleep comes, hold this. A great warm sphere breathes slowly. With each breath, a small part of its outer garment rises and drifts outward, grain by grain, until a thin shell surrounds it, glowing faintly in the star's light. The shell grows and thins. The star breathes again. Far away, a quiet cloud waits. One day, the shell will reach that cloud and become part of it. And from that richer cloud, new centers will form. The story continues not by repeating, but by remembering. Take one more easy breath in for 4 and out for 6. Somewhere, a modest star is entering its red season now, color deepening, radius unfolding like a patient flower. Somewhere, another is steady in a later evening, lifting a continuous breeze, dust drifting outward like slow snow. Somewhere, a lantern shell is expanding, delicate and sure, the last soft announcement of a long, faithful life. And somewhere inside you, there is a core that knows when to hold together and when to share what it has made. Let that knowing guide your night. Grow spacious, grow warm. Let go lightly, rest. Quiet embers, white dwarf, let the night narrow to something gentle and close. Let your shoulders loosen. Unclench your jaw. If it feels good, rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide beside you. Tonight we sit with the quiet embers of stars, the white dwarfs that remain when a red giant sets aside its wide robe. This is the calm after long labor, a heart that stays warm without new fuel. the hush that follows a beautiful day. Imagine a sun-like star at the end of its red season. For ages it has lifted a slow wind, giving back its outer layers until the envelope thins and the core begins to show. Sharp light from that exposed heart touches the drifting shell, making a lantern in the dark. The shell eases outward. The center, small, brilliant, intense, remains. That center is a white dwarf. No fusion, no fresh logs on the fire, nearly all the mass of the former core in a sphere about Earth-sized. Here is the science, said softly. A white dwarf is held up not by heat, but by electron degeneracy pressure. Pack electrons close enough, and a quantum rule refuses further squeezing. Gravity pushes. The electrons answer with a firm temperature-independent no. The result is astonishing density. A teaspoon of this ember would weigh as much as a small mountain, yet the surface shines like a tiny sun, clean, sharp, because heat takes a very long time to leave such tight matter. There is a weight limit to this arrangement. Add too much mass and electron strength can't hold. Above roughly 1.5 suns, a little less, a little more in detail, collapse takes another path and the story becomes neutron stars. Most white dwarfs sit comfortably below that line, about half the sun's mass, sometimes more or less, compressed into an Earth-sized world whose surface gravity would pin you with hundreds of thousands of Gs. Under that pull, heavy elements sink and light ones rise, so the visible skin is usually simple, a thin hydrogen or helium atmosphere over an interior of carbon and oxygen, the ash of earlier seasons, quietly sorted by weight. These embers make no new light. They keep and release what they have. At birth they can be fiercely hot and blue-white. With time they cool through white to yellow and red, fading the way a warmed stone lets go of day after sunset. Deep inside, carbon and oxygen begin to crystallize. A slow freezing from the center outward that releases a little extra warmth as it organizes, like a pond giving back heat as it ices. Imagine a diamond-like lattice on planetary scales. Cooling takes billions of years. In a future too distant to hold, these embers would become black dwarfs, dark stones in a colder sea. None have existed long enough to get there yet. Some embers keep company. In close pairs, a white dwarf may sip gas from a neighbor. If thin hydrogen layers pile up gently, they can ignite in a brief surface flash, a nova, brightening the system, then fading, the core intact and ready to repeat. If the intake pushes the dwarf toward the forbidden limit, a different ending may arrive. A clean, bright unbinding that leaves no ember at all, a Type E supernova. Those rare endings echo across galaxies with reliable strength, letting us measure cosmic distances. Quiet objects become steady yardsticks. Gravity's firmness is written into their light. Photons climbing away lose a whisper of energy and shift slightly red. The atmosphere, only meters thick in its densest layers, sorts elements ruthlessly. If we see heavy atoms there, it often means the dwarf has recently eaten a small rock. Dust of old planets drifting in and dissolving, white dwarfs become forensic lamps. Their spectra carry fingerprints of vanished systems, telling us rocks once circled here, worlds once weathered light and time, a family once lived around the star now reduced to a jewel. Some white dwarfs ring, not to our ears, but with tiny regular flickers from waves traveling inside them. Those tones reveal thickness, composition, and temperature layers, the way a craftsperson learns a bell by tapping it. Others carry strong magnetic fields that funnel heat into spots or sculpt borrowed gas into arcs and funnels. Even cooling, they keep variety in their serenity. Let reflection run alongside. A white dwarf is proof that an ending can be compact and calm, not empty. After long giving, what remains is a concentrated center that doesn't need to perform. It simply is and it lasts. You have parts like that. After seasons of pouring yourself outward, there is a core that keeps shape without noise, a firmness that doesn't require heat to hold. When your day has been a red giant, generous, wide, full of outflow, let your night be a white dwarf. Tuck close. Allow quiet forces to keep you. You don't need new fuel to justify rest. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Imagine heat leaving an ember evenly, not rushed, not stalled. Picture the glow. First pearl white, then coal warm, then a faint cherry, then a memory of light. The timescale is vast. The feeling is familiar. Coals do this after a fire. Bodies do this after a long day. The glow doesn't vanish when the flame is gone. It recedes with dignity. There is comfort in their mass and size. Pack the sun's weight into Earth's volume, and you get gravity so strong, a falling pebble would end in a blink. Yet above the surface, the space is clear, and the light purely star-like. If you could hold a fragment, an impossible thought, you'd hold a story pressed until it learned to say only what matters. It is a form of honesty. Everything superfluous lifted away, the essential intact. Under this pressure, roles shift. Nuclei sit in their places. Electrons form a shared sea. That sea's refusal to be squeezed keeps the whole from folding. You can borrow the image. When tasks and thoughts crowd in, the reflex is heat. More effort, more push. But sometimes a firmer boundary does better. Not anger, not collapse. Just a clear no. The ember teaches that not all stability is hot. Some stability is geometry and principle. In a wide field, a white dwarf looks ordinary, a star among stars. Only up close do you see the story. Gravity's mark in the spectrum, the simple atmosphere, the age in the temperature. Another lesson. From far away, many lives look alike. Up close, the signatures of endurance and choice appear. You don't need an audience to be real. You need coherence that lets you hold your shape. The public show is brief. The private keeping is long. The glowing shell, planetary nebula, fades in tens of thousands of years, a blink. The ember cools for billions more. So it is with us. Celebrations are short. Quiet maintenance fills most days. Meals, water, sleep, tidying, small kindnesses. These are your cooling curves, the steady release that lets a structure last. If company returns, gas trickling from a companion, new events can visit the calm. A surface flash, a temporary brightening, then peace, a longer partnership, and the mass may creep toward a line that cannot be crossed without consequence. Even there, the lesson is gentle. Take only what you can hold without losing what you are. Brighten briefly when you must. Return to the mean that keeps you safe. Breathe again for 4, out for 6. Let the exhale be longer by a friendly margin. Feel the bed answer with gravity soft enough to soothe, firm enough to hold. You aren't falling, you're resting. Let thoughts settle by weight the way elements settle in the dwarf's skin. Heavy worries can sink for the night. Light, necessary notions can float at the top where air is. Under a clear sky, some white dwarfs keep quiet company with brighter stars. The bright one gets the applause. The ember is a pinpoint nearby. Easy to miss unless you know. It's found not by glare but by gravity and a clean spectrum. That is often how worth is noticed. The pull it exerts, the clarity it keeps, the way it continues. Close simply. Somewhere, a thinning shell is drifting off while the core steps into its role. Small, white, intense. Somewhere, an old ember is crystallizing, releasing a last reserve of warmth as it organizes. Somewhere, a pair is trading gas across a narrow gap, planning a brief pageant before returning to calm. And here, you are allowed to be compact and complete for a while, to stop adding fuel and let what you have made keep you warm. In for 4, out for 6. The ember glows. The room grows quiet. What remains is enough. Densest silence. Neutron stars and pulsars. Let the dark turn spacious and kind, like a quiet hall where footsteps fall away behind you. Let your shoulders settle, unclench your jaw. If it feels good, rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide within reach. Tonight we visit the densest silence the stars can make without disappearing. The compact hearts called neutron stars, and the lighthouse keepers we call pulsars. What follows is not a noise but a precision, not a roar but a rhythm. Begin with an ending, A massive star spends its swift life building heavier elements in nested rooms until its core can no longer yield energy by joining. When the core can't pay gravity back with heat, balance fails. The inner part collapses in a rush, the outer layers rebound, and a supernova shakes the neighborhood with light and wind. In that brief upheaval, electrons are pushed into protons. What remains is a small, stubborn object, held up not by heat, but by the refusal of tightly packed neutrons to share the same place. A star's vastness has been folded to the size of a city. A spoonful would outweigh mountains. This is a neutron star. Gravity answered by the quiet strength of the nuclear crowd. At the surface, the pull is so strong, a pebble would land at a significant fraction of light's pace in an instant. The crust is a lattice, thin by proportion, iron-hard beyond any rock. Deeper in, matter changes character. A sea of neutrons with a few protons and electrons threaded through like rare currents. Farther down, theory sketches stranger textures, sheets, tubes, and knots nature invents when packing matter nearly as tight as it can be. At the very center, the map grows uncertain. Some models hint at quarky broths more fundamental than neutrons. You don't need the details to feel the truth. Here, matter is arranged with maximum discipline before gravity would carry it beyond sight. Neutron stars keep their birth spin, and collapse squeezes that spin faster, like a skater drawing in their arms. Many rotate several times a second. Some, spun up by a trickle of matter from a companion, whirl hundreds of times per second. Their magnetic fields, drawn inward and intensified during collapse, become ferocious. Lines of force that reach far into space. Where those lines open, charged particles accelerate and beams of radio light, sometimes X-rays or higher, sweep out from the magnetic poles. If one beam crosses us as the star turns, we see a pulse. A pulsar is simply a neutron star whose lighthouse happens to sweep our shore. The precision can be astonishing. Some pulsars keep time better than our best clocks. Their beats so faithful that a microsecond shift betrays a change within. Astronomers stack pulses over months and years, listening for early and late arrivals. A tiny drift can reveal a companion's tug. Shared sways across many pulsars can hint at deep, slow waves breathing through space itself. With these lighthouses, we have tested gravity in stubborn corners, weighed unseen partners, and mapped places where ordinary light is scarce. The night is full of metronomes, asking only that we measure with care. Sometimes the rhythm stutters. A neutron star can suddenly speed up by a tiny amount, a glitch, then relax back toward habit. The crust may have cracked, releasing strain, or the superfluid interior may have shared a little hidden momentum with the outer layers. In these hiccups, we witness a star's joint adjusting, a deep system seeking comfort. The correction is small, the recovery steady. Even in extremes, nature prefers its middle again. There are kin whose fields are so intense that their light and crust flare in brief tantrums of energy. We call them magnetars. Most days they are quiet lighthouses. At intervals they snap and release a burst that can cross the galaxy, a heartbeat of brilliance with afterglow in X-rays. Even these are not anger, just stress relieved, where there is very little room to flex and yet no break. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Let the exhale be a soft sweep, like a beam turning once across a dark sea. Imagine a patient lighthouse within your chest that keeps its interval regardless of weather. Precision can be calm. Neutron stars often live in company. Some lean close to ordinary stars and borrow a thin stream of gas. As that stream strikes the compact surface, it releases heat and light, an X-ray heartbeat that comes and goes. Others pair with another neutron star, turning together for ages, while gravity sips their orbit's energy. As they spiral inward, they ring the fabric of space with waves too deep for ears. When they touch at last, they shake the universe in a way felt across hundreds of millions of light years. In the aftermath, new elements bloom. Heavy metals we wear and work with owe part of their origin to these quiet collisions. Gold is a memory of densest silence. Their gravity alters light. Photons lose a whisper of energy climbing away, arriving a shade redder than they began. Time itself runs a little slower near their surfaces than in open dark. So a rhythm tapped on that crust would feel different to a faraway listener. You need no math tonight, only the marvel that the cosmos carries clocks so faithful and environments so intense that even time and color bend predictably. Hold a few anchors and let the rest drift. First, a neutron star remains when a massive core collapses, but stops short of becoming a black hole. Second, its matter is not ordinary. Quantum refusal, not warmth, holds it up. Third, some sweep beams past us with lighthouse steadiness, and by those beams, we've learned distances, tunings, and truths otherwise hidden. These three are enough to sit with. Details are comforts you can add at leisure. Let reflection move alongside. Some days you feel scattered, others compressed, as if all of you has been folded into a small space. Compression is not always harm. It can be focus. Somewhere in you is a neutron star part, not hard or cold, but concentrated. A core that holds shape without noise. When the world collapses inward for a moment, that part keeps your rhythm until the outer layers find theirs again. If you listen to a pulsar's regularity, another image appears. These stars are honest about their periods. They don't apologize for turning fast or slow. They don't rush through dim times to reach bright times. They keep the beat they have, and from that faithfulness we read the universe. You are allowed to keep your beat, your breath, your sleep, your quiet mornings and evening walks. These are your pulses. When you keep them, the rest of your life can measure itself and settle. There is kindness in the glitches too. Even the best clocks slip when the crust shifts. The correction is small. The return to normal is steady. Let a day like that be a day like that. A missed step, an interrupted routine, a quickened pace without meaning to. None of it breaks the lighthouse. You will find your timing again. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Feel the long exhale widen the room without moving your body. In the pause between breaths, imagine 2 tiny stars circling for ages, shedding orbital energy as waves that pass through you unnoticed. Evidence that even the void carries conversations from far away. You are part of that listening whether you sense it or not. If you ever see a pulsar's light curve, it looks like peaks marching on a quiet baseline. Spike, rest, spike, rest. Think of your night that way. A breath, a pause, a thought, a letting go, a memory, a softening. The baseline is not empty. It's the fabric that holds the peaks. Silence is not absence. It's the field where precision becomes possible. Somewhere now, a newborn neutron star is cooling rapidly, shedding birth heat and settling into measurable calm. Somewhere, a magnetar rests between rearrangements. Somewhere, a millisecond pulsar spins hundreds of times a second, kept sharp by long-ago gifts from a partner now faint. Somewhere, 2 dense hearts finish their spiral. In their last breath of orbit, they seed a cloud that will one day become stones, rings, and quieter lives. This is what Densest Silence does. It finishes loudly, measures faithfully, gifts heaviness to the future, and endures. Close simply. Let the room be your magnetosphere, shaping stray weather of thought into soft arcs that miss you. Let your breath be your beam, sweeping evenly. In for 4, a gathering. Out for 6, a release. The lighthouse does not search. It turns. You do not need to hunt sleep. You need only keep your interval and let sleep come to the regular shore you have made. The densest silence in the sky is not emptiness. It is form. Let that form hold you now. Last brightness. Supernova. Seeds let the room dim to a gentle hush and let your breath find a pace you don't have to manage. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we stand where endings become beginnings. At the last brightness that scatters seeds. The word is supernova, a fierce act with a generous meaning. This is a chapter about release. A massive star lives swiftly, stacking elements in nested layers, hotter, denser, deeper, until the core holds matter that yields no more energy by joining. When the center can't pay gravity back with heat, support fails. The core collapses in an instant, infalling layers rebound, and a supernova unbinds the star. From far away we see a final, immense signature, a life spent completely. There are two main paths. In core collapse, the heavy star's center falls and a blast follows. Remnants often remain, a neutron star or a black hole. In thermonuclear endings, a white dwarf in a close pair quietly gains mass until a boundary is crossed. A runaway burn sweeps it clean and leaves no core. The first paints diverse outcomes. The second is tidy and consistent, bright enough to serve as a near-standard candle for measuring vast distances. The scales are enormous, but they ask not for fear, only for patience with our smallness, since small lives inherit what these endings provide. What do they provide? Elements: calcium in teeth, iron in blood, nickel in coins, oxygen for breath, silicon for stone. Much of what makes worlds is forged in these lights and their kin. Shockwaves drive last-moment alchemy in outer layers. Collisions of compact remnants and rare explosive lanes make even heavier nuclei. The products hitch rides on dust, drift into clouds and disks, and become part of rocks, oceans, and living breath. After the blast, the debris glows. The shock slams surrounding gas and dust, heating and shaping it into filaments, arcs, and rings that expand year by year. Beneath the beauty is mixing. Quiet shells become traveling threads that stir the space between stars. Where shock fronts compress a cloud, they can nudge new stars to gather. One ending presses kindly on a beginning. Inside the chaos, tiny players matter. Neutrinos, ghostly, countless, stream from the collapsing core. Though they rarely interact, just enough do to help revive the outward push that becomes the explosion. The timing is less than a breath. The reach is measured in light years. Science's quiet miracle. Small counted things move great outcomes. If the core collapses, a neutron star may remain, spinning fast, wrapped in intense magnetism, or a black hole that keeps its counsel. Newborn neutron stars can blow winds that carve glowing hollows. Black holes may sip fallback gas and write faint signatures in the afterglow. Either way, the central gift stands. Elements and motion are returned to the neighborhood. Along the thermonuclear path, the white dwarf's burn is clean and complete. Carbon and oxygen become a cascade of heavier nuclei in seconds, flung outward. The event's brightness follows a rule tied to how the burn unfolds, letting distant observers infer distance. Many repeated endings, measured carefully, become a reliable cosmic ruler. As remnants age, shocks slow and cool. Molecules form in sheltered clumps. Dust condenses in eddies, grains stamped with the conditions of their birth. Those grains drift into future nurseries and become scaffolding for pebbles, stones, worlds. A child planet may one day breathe oxygen from an ancient blast, hold iron from a collapsed core, and host life that borrows those elements modestly in bone and blood. Last brightness becomes ordinary matter becomes home. In crowded regions, a supernova's rim can trigger star formation, a string of new lights tracing the expanding edge. The shape is not a perfect circle, it's a weather map bending around dense pockets, bursting through thinner lanes. If it had sound, it would be a long sigh, a pressure front through a forest of clouds. Hold the softer thread. A final brightness can feel like loss, but the sky tells it as distribution. The star doesn't hoard. It spends and returns, giving away what it built under pressure, so quieter places can use it without paying the same cost. You can live small versions of this. When a project ends, scatter what you learned. When a role changes, pass the tools. When a day closes, send a little warmth outward. A message, a meal, a kindness. Last brightness scaled to a life. There is a caution. These endings happen because a limit is crossed. A center that can no longer support the weight must change state. The star does not insist on continuing as before. It allows the change and, in allowing, becomes a source for others. In your seasons, some thresholds won't yield to stubbornness. Recognizing them isn't quitting. It's fidelity to what is true. Cross with care, Bring what you can to others as you go. Breathe in for 4. Breathe out for 6. Let the exhale feel like a wave, strong near the center, easing as it travels, carrying small gifts into the dark. Imagine a thin shell of memory expanding from you too, quiet, kind, full of elements you forged from effort and time. Most of it will be anonymous, which is the point. The universe is mostly anonymous generosity, a few science anchors to rest on. The light curve of a core collapse event is powered by shock heating and by the decay of newly minted elements sharing energy with the ejector. Its rise and fall reveal how much fuel was made. The remnant's shape records the geometry of the blast and the history of its surroundings. Filament speeds trace the density of the medium. Studied across years, the story becomes less about explosion and more about ecology. A cloud feeds a star feeds a cloud. There are rarer endings when two compact objects merge. Neutron stars folding into each other after a long dance. Their light carries a special, redder kilonova glow, fingerprint of heavy elements thrown outward. Gold, platinum, and kin. Those seeds cool into dust and in time into rings, soil, vessels, tools. The chain from last brightness to first use is traced not only in poetry, but in laboratory spectra of atoms from stones and stars. Romance and rigor agree. If you look at a photograph of a supernova remnant, you'll see threadwork. Delicate arcs shaped by huge forces playing slowly in a thin medium. Borrow that patience. Big changes in you won't always look big from the outside. They'll look like slight rearrangements until time and distance reveal the pattern. Trust the thin medium. Trust the slow unfolding. End softly. A supernova is not the sky making noise for its own sake. It's the sky making room, clearing a well-lived house and leaving lumber and stone for new builders. Its seeds lifted on a wind that won't return to the original field. You don't have to control where they land. You only have to let them go. One more breath. 4 in, 6 out. Somewhere, a massive core has just met its limit and is teaching its neighborhood what it made under pressure. Somewhere, a quiet white dwarf in a close pair edges toward a clean flare and a ruler for distant measures. Somewhere, a ring's edge is bright where a shock is passing and tiny knots are cooling into dust. And here, the last brightness of your day is becoming seeds you cannot see, drifting into nearby lives. You may rest now. The work continues in the dark, and you're part of it, eyes open or closed. A moving map, proper motion and drift. Let the room grow quiet the way a map grows simple at night. Roads to lines, lines to rest. Ease your shoulders down. Unclench your jaw. If it feels good, rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest. Breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep that tide near. Tonight we notice the sky is not a painting. It is a moving map. Stars drift, not only with Earth's spin, but by their own slow travels. The patterns you learned as a child are long conversations in motion. Begin with the simplest idea. A star is not nailed to the black. It is a neighbor in a very large city, walking. The city is immense and the streets are broad, so most footsteps are too small to catch with unaided eyes. Measured carefully though, positions change. That change on the sky from year to year is proper motion. The sideways slide of a star against the distant background, a trace of its true path projected onto our dome of night. This drift is not parallax, though they can look similar. Parallax is the apparent shift because we moved. Earth crosses to the other side of its orbit. Near stars sway against far ones, then sway back 6 months later. Proper motion is the star's own steady walk, continuing in one direction year after year. One is our step, the other is theirs. Together they turn the sky into a living map with depth and motion. Why does any star drift? Because the galaxy is a great river of orbits. Each star moves around the center on a broad path. No two paths are exactly the same. Some share a general swirl, like leaves in a slow whirlpool, but each leaf has its own eddies and angles. From here, those differences sum to slight slides across the sky. Nearby stars seem to move more than distant ones, like a car close to your lane sweeping by while a far truck hardly crawls. Closeness enlarges motion. A few neighbors trace bold yearly steps, small, faint, very close stars, or travelers from different galactic neighborhoods cutting through our block. If you watch decade-spaced images, some points would carve tiny straight lines among steadier ones, like quiet insects crossing a still pond. Proper motion comes in two pieces. The sky kindly separates how fast and what direction. Rates are tiny angles per year. Directions are arrows on a map. Add a third piece, radial velocity, motion toward or away from us. Read from spectral shifts to blue or red. Combine sideways step with in-out drift to get a space velocity, a true pace, and heading through the galaxy. Stars of similar origin often share similar space motions. Plot their arrows, and you may see a moving group, a dispersed family still traveling together. Perspective leaves signatures. When a star heads roughly toward us, its path across the sky seems to shrink toward a point, like rails converging at the horizon. Many nearby stars, including our Sun, share a gentle drift toward one patch of sky and away from another. The solar apex and antipex. We too are walking in the city. The effect is subtle, but spread across thousands of stars it becomes a pattern. A slow migration on an ancient tapestry. Motions carry memory. Open clusters do not stay bound forever. Over time, subtle tugs and the galaxy's pull stretch them from a knot into a stream, then into a faint current. Long after the nursery fades, members wander widely, still sharing nearly the same space motion and similar chemistry. A clan diluted into the city, but traceable to those who can read a moving map. To find such a stream is to catch a whisper of a long-vanished cradle. The galaxy's differential rotation adds another layer. Inner parts circle faster than outer parts. Stars at different radii keep different times. From our arm, this feels like shearing that, over ages, will pull constellations into new shapes. The hunter lifts a shoulder. The great dog stretches a paw. For a human lifetime, changes are delicate as breath. Across 100,000-year spans, they're evident. Constellations are snapshots of a parade. Measuring drift has become a precise art. Repeated, careful observations mark subtle position changes for millions upon millions of stars. From those, distances are verified and motions traced. A map once static becomes a field of arrows. With enough arrows, larger flows appear. Waves in the thin disk, ripples left by encounters with passing clouds or small galaxies. Faint scars time is smoothing. There is a small effect worth pocketing, perspective acceleration. If a star approaches or recedes, its apparent speed across the sky changes slightly over time, even if its true space speed is steady. Geometry alone alters the angle of motion on our dome, measured patiently across years. This tiny change hints at distance or unseen companions. The map teaches patience. Nothing huge is required to learn something real. Only a clean line measured often. Practical anchors to keep. Proper motion is a star's steady change in sky position from its actual motion through space. Near things drift, more on the map than far things at the same space speed. Sideways, drift plus radial velocity gives full space. Velocity and reveals shared origins. Constellations bend and stretch over long times, because everything moves, including us. These don't ask for numbers, only the acceptance that stillness is a useful illusion. Let reflection keep pace. Your life has proper motion too. From a distance you look steady. Up close you're moving, changing, sliding across your background at a rate you can feel when you're gentle with yourself. Some changes are parallax, responses to your own yearly path, new schedules, seasons, shifting light in the window. Other changes are proper motion, your true drift, the direction you are slowly choosing, the habits that add up to a line on your map. Knowing which is which helps. If a feeling returns each year with the same season, call it parallax and meet it with rhythm. If a direction persists when seasons turn, call it motion and let it guide you openly. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Let breath be the metronome that allows small drifts to be noticed. When inner weather quiets, you can see which thoughts move with the year and which move with you. Lean gently with one, step gently with the other. No argument needed. Both can be mapped. There is comfort in how slow most motions are. The sky doesn't rush to become unrecognizable. It becomes itself by degrees. Your map does the same. A few minutes of quiet daily, a little more water, a walk, a kinder sentence. These are small vectors. Over years they change a life's shape, noticeable only when you lay two distant images side by side. Time is an instrument on your side when used with softness. We carry a bias that only fast movement counts. The sky disagrees. Some meaningful flows are gradual, streams of old clusters stretching into the disk, long waves in the galactic plane, neighbors converging toward a point because that's the city's drift. It's enough to notice and align. You don't have to sprint to be in motion. You already are. The question is whether the arrow suits you. Return to the same dark field years apart. You won't see drift with your eyes, but you might feel it, thinking what changed in you between visits. You are the instrument that can register a proper motion of the self. The sky helps by reminding you imperceptible non-existent. The map moves whether you watch or sleep. A last gentle thought. Even in a moving city, relationships persist. Groups born together share a drift long after leaving the nursery. People do too. You may not travel side by side with everyone who shaped you, but you may carry similar space motion, a shared tendency, a chemistry of thought and care that reveals origins to anyone who knows how to read. Not nostalgia, but a kind acknowledgement. Belonging leaves vectors as well as memories. One more slow breath. 4 in, 6 out. Somewhere nearby, a faint star slides a tiny step each year, patient and true. Somewhere, a loose family has become a stream, still together by motion, if not by distance. Somewhere, a wave is crossing the disk, shifting orbits by a whisper, setting a pattern that will take millions of years to reveal its full curve. And here, your own map is moving at a humane pace, guided by small arrows you can keep. Let the night be your atlas. Let your breath be your compass. Trust the drift that feels honest, and rest, finding the dark. Light pollution and true night. Let the room dim until it feels like a soft cave, and let your breath fall into an easy tide. In for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight we go looking for darkness, not as absence, but as the place where faint things can live. After sunset our world stays bright, much of it spilling upward where it does no good. Yet true night still exists, and when you find it you learn. Darkness is a language the sky speaks quietly and well. Over towns and cities, a pale dome glows even on moonless nights. This sky glow is light launched sideways or upward from unshielded fixtures. Particles in the air scatter it back to our eyes and wash the heavens to grey. Bright stars and planets remain, but the subtle fabric, the Milky Way, dim clusters, starbirth veils and dark lanes, vanishes. This hiding light isn't malicious, it's careless, unshielded, too blue, too bright, on too long, and in the wrong places. Night is thinned in other ways too. Glare is light so bright it blinds the eye to what lies beyond. Light trespass is illumination that wanders onto porches and pillows uninvited. Clutter is a tangle of competing fixtures. The common thread is aim and tone, light pointed outward instead of downward, light bluer than necessary, light left on when no one benefits. Aim, tone, time. Adjust those 3, and the sky begins to heal. A little science, said softly. The air scatters very short wavelengths more than long ones. That's part of why daytime skies are blue, and why cool white blue heavy lamps are so effective at making night glow. Warmer light, amber soft gold, scatters less and is kinder to the view above. Shielding matters as much as colour. A full cut-off fixture hides the bulb and sends light down to paths and keys, not up to owls and constellations. Small changes ripple outward. A hooded porch lamp lowers the dome above a street. A motion sensor lets darkness return between visits. Multiply that by a neighborhood and the river of the Milky Way reappears. Your eyes are instruments for 2 worlds. In bright scenes, cone cells see color. In darkness, rods take over. Poor at color but exquisitely sensitive. They need 10–20 minutes to wake fully. Then smudges become clusters, patches become rivers. A flash of white light undoes the chemistry, which is why red lamps and dim screens are friendly for night eyes. Red scarcely troubles the rods, and the subtle fabric remains. People use a simple scale to describe how much sky is left, from the brightest city core to the deepest wilderness. At one end, you count only a few stars and no Milky Way. At the other, the sky arches like woven cloth, shadows cast by starlight alone. Most of us live in the middle now, constellations and planets, but no river on average nights. The scale isn't a test. It's a reminder that darkness has gradients, and you can move along them by choice. Wild creatures write their lives on this scale. Some hunt by starlight and are dazzled by glare. Others migrate by the arch of the heavens and are misled by towers and domes. Sea turtles may chase a parking lot's horizon instead of the sea. Birds circle lit plumes and waste their strength. Even trees read prolonged twilight, leafing early, holding late. The point isn't to scold a bulb. It's to aim it where feet and locks are, choose the warmest tone that serves the task, and let darkness return when the task is done. If you want the practice of finding true night, begin close to home. Shield your door light so it points down, not out. Choose a warmer, lower wattage bulb. Put it on a timer or motion sensor so it keeps watch when needed and rests when not. Draw thick curtains at bedtime. If you must glance at a phone, dim it and use a red filter. Carry a small red torch for night trips. These are courtesies to your eyes, to sleeping neighbours, to owls, and to the sky. Then step outward. Walk to the edge of your block and look up where there are fewer lamps. Drive a short way out of town and the patterns sharpen again. If you reach a dark sky park or reserve, stand still and give your eyes time. The sky will grow while you are not watching. A faint path will appear, the Milky Way, with dark lanes cut across it. In a few places, starlight alone casts shadows. You may not travel that far often. You don't need to. Even modest improvements, a ball field dark after hours, lots dimmed late, a row of shielded lamps, can bring the river back. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. As the room darkens, shapes simplify, edges soften, attention widens. This isn't laziness, it's a different mode of seeing. The sky prefers it. With it, the urge to label yields to the pleasure of patterns. A satellite's slow sweep, a meteor's pale fall, a fog of stars rising like breath. If you wonder why stars vanish in the city but planets and the moon don't, the faintest features sit just above the threshold of night vision. Raise the background glow and they slip beneath it. Bright things remain, but the texture is gone. Lower the background and the texture returns. True night is a gift made from subtraction. You don't amplify the whisper. You reduce the noise. There's a human thread. Our bodies read dusk and dawn as timing cues. Regular edges help. Darkness at night, daylight in the morning. This isn't about rules. It's about kindness. Dimmer, warmer lamps late. Daylight at breakfast. Windows open when you can. Light with purpose. Darkness with purpose. Communities are writing purpose into design. Towns adopt warm, shielded streetlights and lower levels when traffic is light. Parks protect their horizons. Observatories and neighbours coordinate so telescopes and porches can both do their jobs. Groups replace a few fixtures each season, talk with shop owners about timers and shields, and celebrate nights when the river returns. Perfection isn't required, momentum is. Darkness spreads like light. One fixture, one sensible choice, one good example at a time. A short field guide for finding true night. Choose a clear, dry evening. Leave bright screens an hour before you go. Bring a red torch. Seek the darkest nearby spot with open horizons and few direct lights. Stand still. Give your eyes 20 minutes. Look slightly aside from faint patches. Your most sensitive cells live off-center. Notice layers. Bright stars, dim stars, a pale river, dark lanes, glow near the horizon. Listen. Night has a sound. Distance, insects, leaves, your shoes on dust. On the way home, notice how your eyes resist the first lamp, then accept it. You haven't become fragile. You've become tuned. Breathe again for 4. Breathe out for 6. Let the exhale be a porch lamp clicking off when no one needs it. Let the inhale be a sky gaining one more thread of stars. Small acts, repeated, are how true night returns. If you want to invite others, avoid telling them what to lose. Tell them what they gain. A shielded warm lamp reduces glare and makes paths safer. A timer saves money. A motion sensor is convenient. A midnight dim helps babies sleep and neighbors rest. And quietly the Milky Way comes back. The argument for darkness is a love letter, not a scold. Some nights clouds or the moon will erase darkness. Let those be their own beauties. Silver on roofs, cloud tops glowing like low auroras. They remind you the sky is an actor, not a backdrop. When darkness returns, you'll know it by contrast. When the moon thins and the air clears, step out again and count how many points have come home. Close softly. Darkness is not the villain of light. It is its stage. Stars don't need us to see them, but when we do, we enter the story they're writing. Somewhere, a town turned off a ball field and an owl took the first true night mouse in months. Somewhere, a child just saw the river and learned the sky is alive. Somewhere, a neighbor swapped a cold bulb for a warm one and found the path easier without glare. And here, your room is a small sanctuary, trimmed of extra shine, full of the quiet that lets faint things appear. In for 4, out for 6. Let a little darkness back in. The sky will meet you there, speaking in low, steady tones, patient as breath. Stories in the sky, constellations and culture. Let the room grow as quiet as a field after harvest, and let your breath slip into an easy pace. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tonight, we look up not just at stars, but at the stories we've drawn between them. Lines across darkness that link light to memory. The sky is a book every culture has written in. Constellations are the handwriting. A gentle truth, a constellation isn't a single thing in space. It's a pattern on our dome, stars at very different distances that only appear close. Some patterns are official borders astronomers use to map the whole sky. Others are asterisms, familiar shapes that cross those borders. The dipper, the belt, the triangle, the square, the teapot. All of them are invitations. Start here, connect a few points, remember your place. Hold a few easy anchors. In the north, 7 stars make a bowl and handle. The Big Dipper, whose pointer stars lead to Polaris, the near North Star used by travelers for a heading. Far south, a jeweled cross tilts toward the southern pole. In summer, 3 bright stars make a triangle that survives city glow. In autumn, 4 bright ones make a square that opens a dark window. Shapes are a kindness. They let the mind cradle the sky without knowing every name. Science keeps its balance inside the stories. Stars in a picture are neighbors on the page, but not in space. Over long ages, their slow motions bend the figures. A hunter lifts a shoulder. A scorpion lengthens its tail. Earth's axis also wobbles, precession, so the North Star changes over millennia. The index shifts. The book keeps turning. Cultures drew their own maps, each honest to its needs. The Big Dipper has been a great bear, a plough, a wagon. A scorpion's curve warned of summer heat along desert plains. A hunter rose after the rains near the equator. In Australia, people traced an emu not by stars, but by the dark lanes in the Milky Way. Proof that constellations can be drawn from darkness as well as light. Those dark shapes have their own literature. In Andean nights, people read llamas and foxes in the coal-black gaps of the Milky Way, animals outlined by absence. Elsewhere, the river of the sky was called a road, a canal, a spill of milk, a fish of light. Each name is a way to say the same honest thing, a band too rich to count, belonging to all. Navigation is where story meets survival. Ocean wayfinders memorize the rising and setting points of stars the way you memorize streets. Each star, a notch on the horizon, a chain of lights between islands. On land, Polaris's height mirrors latitude. In the south, the tilt of the Southern Cross points to an unseen pole. A desert scorpion marks months of dry lightning. A cluster of tiny diamonds, Pleiades, announces a season's turn. Children learn this by walking outside with elders and tracing lines with a finger. Names carry histories. Many star names are Arabic: Aldebaran, Betelgeuse, Rigel, Altair. Echoes of scholars who safeguarded and refined astronomy. Others keep Greek myths alive. In some traditions, the Milky Way is a heavenly river. In others, it's an ancestor road. Some regions divided the sky into many small mansions for empire and agriculture. Others traced a few large creatures timed to seasons of rain, fire, and cold. Landscapes shaped lenses. Lenses shaped maps. There's practical use beneath the poetry. Constellations slice the sky into neighborhoods. Astronomers can say, a comet will pass this bright star in 3 nights. A meteor shower radiates near that familiar shape. Without the grid of stories, directions are numbers. With it, they're a walk. From the dipper's pointers to north, from the summer triangle to the swan, from the teapot spout to a misty cloud of newborn suns. Carry a pocket full of patterns by feel. 3 stars in a row like a belt, a curve like a handle, a pinch of ice sparkles like spilled salt, a broad square in autumn, a lone diamond in the south, a kite in spring, a crooked house in the north. These shapes steady your gaze like a handrail on stairs. They're not the destination, they're how you climb. Light and culture share the sky, and both can be lost. When horizons glow all night, the river disappears, and with it many stories. The fix isn't to scold the city, it's to aim light where it's needed, warm its color, and shorten its hours. With a little courtesy, constellations return to neighborhoods that thought they'd lost them. And with the figures come old words and new ones. Families make private asterisms, porch to tree to rooftop, a triangle that means home. There's humility in the patterns. We connect stars because we seek meaning across distance. The stars accept our lines. They don't require them. You're free to draw your own. 3 points near the ecliptic become a cat. 4 low over hills become a boat. Children do this without prompting, proof it's allowed. Personal shapes can live beside official ones, the way a nickname lives beside a formal name. A little more science, softly. Latitude decides what you can see. Near the equator, you meet most of the sky through a year. Far north or south, some figures never rise and others never set, circling the pole as companions. The tilt of Earth gives each season its cast. Crisp winter hunters, wide summer haze and river, tidy autumn squares and triangles, gentle spring kites and sickles. The moon strolls through these neighborhoods, changing the mood with its phase. Silver maps some nights, ink drawn others. If you want a practice you can keep, choose one shape this month and be faithful to it. Step outside weekly at roughly the same time and find it. Watch it rise earlier as weeks pass. Notice how its angle shifts, how faint stars sharpen on colder, drier nights. When clouds come, imagine where it sits behind them, then greet it on the first clear evening. Soon it will feel like a friend who keeps a steady schedule, then add a neighbor to its right or left. That is how a map grows, not by cramming, but by visits. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. Let your breath be the line connecting 2 points. Shoulder to shoulder, roof line to horizon. Set your own constellation of small rituals. A glass of water at dusk, a minute of open window, a glance up before bed, a whispered name for a shape you've learned. Patterns become culture at the scale of a room. Listen to an elder tell their sky, and you'll hear weather braided with wisdom. The first rising of a cluster before dawn means planting. The setting of a bright star at twilight means winds will shift. A long-absent figure returns to the morning and festivals begin. Calendars were once drawn overhead before they were printed on paper. Even if yours lives on a screen, let one date each month be set by a rising or return. The teapot at the fence post, the W clearing the roof, the belt over the hill. Quiet anniversaries kept by light. Stories add depth without stealing honesty. A hero's belt points toward a fuzzy patch where new stars are being born. A teapot's steam is a cloud of distant suns along the galaxy's inner arm. The dipper's pointers lead to a north star that wobbles slowly and will someday seed the post. Myth and measurement shaking hands. Close with a small walk in the mind. Stand in a dark field. In the north, the bowl and handle tilt. 2 stars at its rim draw a line to a steady point. From there, drop to a crooked crown. A W that sometimes looks like an E. Turn east. 3 bright points form a triangle. A bird lies across it, wings wide. Follow the bird along a pale river. On its bank, a pinch of diamonds sits like salt on black cloth. Farther south, a sturdy little cross leans over a dark gap that becomes an animal when you soften your eyes. None of these lights are truly connected, yet they are, because you connect them. Your attention threads them. Your breath paces them. Your memory keeps them long enough for morning. 1 more tide. In for 4. Out for 6. Somewhere a grandparent is guiding a small finger from star to star. Somewhere a navigator rehearses a route from ridge to ridge by 2 bright risings. Somewhere a poet names a private shape no chart will hold, and is comforted each winter. And here you are, under the same book, tracing the same calm lines. Let the stories do their soft work. Let the science keep them steady. Let night hold the map while you drift. Thank you for spending these minutes with me tonight on Silent Equations. Before we part, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me 3 quick things in the comments. Your city, your time of day, and your sky in 1 word. It might look like Lisbon 2310, clear, or Manila, morning, hazy. Seeing our little constellation of listeners appear across the map is my favorite part of this channel. What stayed with you from this episode? Share 1 sentence you'd tell a friend tomorrow. Was it a fact, a feeling, a picture you'll carry when you look up again? If you drifted off and you're catching the end in the morning, say hello and leave the time you woke up to this. Night crew and day crew, you're both welcome here. Choose our next journey with a tiny vote. Type A if you want auroras, how the sky learns to dance. Type B for reading starlight, how spectra tell the truth. I'll check the comments and follow your lead. If you learn something new, tap like. It really helps this calm corner reach the next person who needs it. If you want more nights like this, subscribe and ring the bell. Set it to all, so the next episode finds you wherever you are. On a bus, on a couch, under a sky you can see, or a sky you're still searching for. I read everything you write, so tell me how you listen. Are you walking, studying, winding down, holding a sleepy baby, working a night shift? What's 1 small ritual you pair with these stories? A cup of tea, a candle, a blanket, a window cracked open to the cool air. I'll borrow your favorites for future intros so we can share ideas for calm. If you want company while you rest, the playlist on the channel called Sleep Editions waits for you. Hours of gentle astronomy stitched together without mid-rolls. If you'd rather keep learning, start with the first episode in the star life cycle. You can also find sources and extra reading in the description if you like to go down friendly rabbit holes. Before we go, let's take 1 last easy breath together. In for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let your jaw soften. Let your shoulders drop a notch. The sky will keep its watch until you're ready to look up again. Thank you for being part of Silent Equations. I'm grateful for your time, your attention, and your stories. Leave your location, your skyword, and your vote for the next topic below. I'll see you in the comments, and then back here soon for another quiet adventure. Good night, good morning, and keep looking up.